Bonsoir, mesdames et messieurs, et bienvenue à notre séance du Conseil pour le mois de décembre, la dernière séance avant les fêtes et l'année prochaine. Sur ça, on va commencer avec, comme d'habitude, Monsieur le commandant, Monsieur Mailleux. Bienvenue ce soir avec leur présentation de notre SPVM.
Bonsoir. Alors, heureusement, je suis content de vous annoncer encore une fois un mois de novembre tranquille, criminalité très stable, même à la baisse. On remarque dans les introductions par réfraction, par rapport à l'an passé, on a même la moitié moins. C'est sûr que l'année passée, avant les fêtes, on avait eu une petite vague d'intro dans les commerces, puis on avait eu des arrestations au mois de janvier. On avait un groupe qui avait ciblé nos commerces dans les alentours du boulevard Pierrefonds et Gouin, surtout entre des Sources et Saint-Charles. Et alors là, on a beaucoup moins d'introductions par réfraction, autant dans les commerces que dans les résidences. La seule augmentation qu'on a dans le secteur, on remarque beaucoup plus de vols de véhicules, surtout des véhicules neufs. Les modèles Toyota sont ciblés, donc on dit aux citoyens, faites attention, assurez-vous de verrouiller vos portes. Cependant, malgré la légère hausse qu'on a eue, notre centre d'enquête est au courant de la problématique et on va avoir des démarches d'enquête et on a des projets qui travaillent là-dessus présentement. Je ne peux pas rentrer dans les détails des techniques d'enquête puis dans les dossiers en particulier, mais juste vous dire s'il y a des citoyens qui ont été victimes de vols, on est au courant qu'on a une augmentation dans les derniers mois. Et ce n'est pas juste seulement qu'à Pierrefonds, d'un petit peu dans le West Island. Et, je pense que ce n'est pas un secret pour personne. Les véhicules Toyota, Honda, toujours un petit peu plus ciblés. Point de vue circulation, au point de vue de collision, puis je vous dis collision, je ne parle pas accident, parce qu'accident, c'est totalement accidentel. Collision, c'est qu'il y a une cause souvent, puis soit qu'il y a une faute de quelqu'un. On est sensiblement la même chose que l'année passée. 30 collisions dans le mois passé dans l'arrondissement Pierrefonds-Roxboro. Rien de blessés graves. On remarque 11 collisions avec blessés légers. Et sous l'étude des collisions, présentement, une des causes qui revient souvent, c'est l'inattention. Je peux vous dire, en tout, sur 7 cas, c'est clairement de l'inattention. On a 3 cas où c'est des personnes arrêtées à les feux rouges. On a embouti la personne en avant. On a 4 cas où on n'a pas cédé le passage aux piétons, des piétons qui ont été heurtés, heureusement pas blessés gravement. Je tiens à rappeler que vous avez vu dans les médias, nos accidents piétons sur le territoire sont en hausse. Fait qu'on dit aux gens de faire attention, traverser aux intersections, être bien visible. Puis on a un accident dans le dernier mois, c'est quelqu'un en état d'ébriété qui s'est infligé les blessures à elle-même en conduisant. Alors, le temps des fêtes, on passe un message de sensibilisation. Bientôt, nez rouge va être en fonction. On vous encourage à prendre ça. Puis de ne pas prendre de chance, que ce soit alcool et drogue. Vous avez sûrement vu dans les événements qui ont dans les nouvelles locales, on a eu un incendie dans une garderie. À date, c'est un événement isolé, on n'en a pas eu d'autres. Donc, je tiens à rassurer les gens, là, on n'a pas un incendiaire qui se promène dans Pierrefonds. On a eu des démarches, nos agents sociocommunautaires ont fait des visites, on a fait de la prévention, on a donné des conseils de sécurité. Je me suis moi-même déplacé pour rencontrer les parents, pour les sécuriser. Et nos enquêteurs sont sur le dossier. On n'a pas de motif. Et heureusement, c'est arrivé durant la nuit. Donc, on n'a pas de blessés. Ce n'était pas une personne visée. Les enfants n'étaient pas visés. C'était arrivé la nuit. Aussi, malheureusement, la bibliothèque de Pierrefonds, ici dernièrement, on a un individu qui a fait des méfaits, qui a fait qu'avec un tournevis qui a endommagé des bancs et des chaises, on est pour plus de 5 000 $ de dommages. Mais heureusement, les employés ont été alertes, ont remarqué les caméras et ont pu localiser l'individu, nous ont appelé, on a pu procéder à son arrestation, puis on l'a détenu pour l'accuser de méfaits plus de 5 000 $ à notre belle bibliothèque neuve à Pierrefonds. Mais grâce à la vigilance des employés, on a pu arrêter la personne, puis la collaboration avec les policiers, c'est un beau travail d'équipe. Aussi, pour faire un retour, on nous a parlé de certaines plaintes qu'on a eues au dernier conseil. Je ne passerai pas tout au complet, puis dites-vous que si je ne mentionne pas, c'est parce qu'on ne les a pas travaillées, je vais passer seulement les principales, puis on en a plusieurs plaintes, donc on y va sur soit les plus, soit qu'il y a un risque plus gros pour le danger, ou soit qu'on a plus de plaintes de citoyens. On a fait beaucoup d'opérations sur le boulevard, des opérations vitesse sur le boulevard Pierrefonds, surtout entre Saint-Jean et dans les environs de Richemont, pas loin de PCHS. On était très présents là. On était présents sur le boulevard Gouin, beaucoup d'opérations vitesse dans le boulevard pour le feu rouge. Beaucoup de billets ont été donnés. On s'entend qu'il y a encore de la construction, il faut ralentir. En ce qui est des incivilités, on a parlé au dernier conseil. On avait une crainte pour des attroupements sur le centre d'achat dans le bout de Gouin et Fredmé pour des jeunes. Notre agence communautaire, Daniel, a rencontré les commerçants. Eux, on ne dit pas avoir vu de problème d'attroupement. On a vérifié les alentours. On n'a pas vu non plus de graffiti. On a fait des liens avec Ajoie pour voir s'il y avait des jeunes qui s'y là. Fait qu'on a voulu faire de la prévention, mais on n'a pas eu de problématique qui s'est vue comme telle. Nos policiers sont passés quelques fois, puis on a rencontré, puis les jeunes nous disent se sentir en sécurité. Les commerçants ne nous ont pas dit non plus d'avoir vu rien qui sortait de l'ordinaire ou d'attroupement, là, mais c'était pris en compte, puis on a fait des démarches là, avec Ajoie s'il y a des jeunes qui se tenaient là. Comme je dis, peut-être il y a des raisons légitimes, là, peut-être qu'ils n'ont rien à faire, puis ont choisi ce spot-là, mais on a fait des démarches avec nos commerçants, puis nos agents socio-communautaires, puis nos policiers ont fait des présences aussi. Je vous rappelle que bientôt le temps des fêtes va arriver. On va avoir plusieurs barrages routiers. Je ne vous dirai pas où, mais il va en avoir, fait que ça va être une surprise pour tous. Mais si on respecte les lois, on ne devrait pas avoir de problème. Aussi, au point de vue CSR, on était très présents. On a eu des plaintes dans Pierrefonds-Ouest, dans les bouts d'Antoine Faucon. Juste dans le dernier mois, on a fait 5 opérations vitesse là, puis les vitesses pour les stops pour les environs, là, dans le bout d'Antoine Faucon, puis tout dans la partie ouest, là, on était beaucoup présents.
Merci, M. le commandant. M. Mailleux.
Côté prévention et relations avec la communauté, 2 petits points. On avait des problèmes à PCHS pour la cybercriminalité. Les jeunes s'envoyaient toutes sortes de photos, texting. Alors, on a rencontré les secondaires 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 sont plus vieux, donc on avait moins de problèmes avec eux. On les a rencontrés pour les mettre au parfum là, des réalités et des conséquences criminelles lorsqu'ils s'envoient des photos ou des messages là, qui sont intimidants ou criminels. Alors, aussi un autre point, on a rencontré le groupe Le 6 mois. C'est le centre d'intégration qui accueille les nouveaux arrivants étrangers dans leur nouveau bureau sous boulevard Pierrefonds. On a rencontré les nouveaux arrivants pour leur présenter les services que le SPVM offre et la plupart restent dans l'arrondissement, les familiariser avec tous les services qui sont offerts avec le SPVM. Et plusieurs écoles ont été visitées encore une fois pour l'intimidation. Terry Fox, l'école Odyssée, Saint-Anthony, Beechwood et Personnage pour terminer. Merci.
Merci, M. Mailleux. Question de la part de notre conseil, M. Langevin.
On a eu une belle annonce ce mois-ci sur la quantité de brigadiers qui vont être disponibles sur l'île de Montréal. C'est une motion qu'on avait déposée à l'opposition officielle. Ça a été répondu favorable par l'administration. I would like to know if that has an impact here locally in the borough at the Arrondissement Pierrefonds-Roxboro, if we're going to have more cross guards across the borough.
Well, right now we're not opening any crosswalk. We are 2 new cross guards that are called in French surnuméraires. So we had a problem sometime that we're missing people. We had to assign police officers on some of the crosswalk. So right now we have 12 in the neighborhood, and Pierrefonds-Roxboro, also Saint-Geneviève and El-Bizarre. So all of them will be maintained. Right now we're finishing the evaluation, the yearly evaluation. So all of them would be will be maintained next year. And as of creation of new one, right now we're just kind of making sure we have enough staff for the one we have, because we need permanent people, and also when they go on sick leave and vacation. So it's going to help. It's not going to make a big change, but the ones that are there are going to stay there.
Si Monsieur le commandant, on a quelques suggestions au niveau des endroits qu'on peut mettre d'autres brigadiers, est-ce qu'on peut communiquer l'information à vous? Parce qu'on a Mme Leroux qui est très impliquée au niveau des commissions. Et là, si on a des vrais besoins, je ne sais pas à quelle école, mais on va déterminer avec Mme Leroux. Et là, on va vous transmettre l'information parce que selon notre motion à la Ville de Montréal, l'administration a annoncé des fonds disponibles, supplémentaires, pour ajouter des brigadiers un peu partout sur le territoire. Et là, ceci étant dit, on va communiquer l'information avec vous dans les plus brefs délais pour au moins aider les écoles dans les problématiques vraiment ciblées sur le territoire.
Oui, bien, c'est ça, on va travailler ensemble. Alors, possiblement pas pour janvier, parce qu'on a toute une séquence d'approbation où je pense que vous connaissez, mais ensemble, je suis très ouvert, on va travailler ensemble avec vous, les élus de la commission scolaire, l'école qui va être ciblée. Alors, on a une demande qu'on peut faire, puis en collaboration avec notre comité de circulation, puis aussi avec la section sécurité routière du SPVM, on va voir qu'est-ce qu'on peut aller, mais oui, je suis ouvert, c'est sûr qu'on va travailler ensemble.
Merci. Madame Leroux, oui.
Oui, justement, merci, Monsieur le maire. Donc, c'est possible de faire des petites vérifications. J'ai 2 écoles, justement, qui auraient besoin de sécurité, peut-être un peu plus là, le matin. C'est Terry Fox, qu'on me signale, qui a besoin plus, et Kingsdale, qui aurait besoin aussi de peut-être vérification le matin. Parce que il y aurait besoin aussi, si éventuellement, là, il y a des brigadiers disponibles, peut-être qu'il y aurait besoin, un besoin là, à ces niveaux-là.
Pour l'instant, comme j'ai dit, avec le système d'approbation d'avoir les nouveaux brigadiers, on ne pourrait pas placer un brigadier comme c'est là, mais pour ce qui est de l'école Terry Fox, on a déjà une plainte de circulation, une attention spéciale qui est ouverte là. Dernièrement, parce qu'avant de venir ce soir, cet après-midi, j'ai vérifié mes vérifications de mes policiers. Puis dernièrement, on était présents le matin autour de l'école Terry Fox, puis on va continuer d'être présents. Mais il y a des vérifications, puis on va le maintenir en attention spéciale.
Merci, Monsieur le commandant, Madame Leroux. D'autres questions de la part du Conseil, de la part de nos citoyens? Any questions from the audience? Mr. Stitt.
Good evening. You mentioned the library vandalism was one youth, you said, and the amount of the damage was under 5,000, was it?
It was not a youth. I didn't mention the person's age.
Oh, okay.
But
So
it was,
can you
it was
tell
a-
us who it was?
It was around 5,000, a little bit more, because it was charged. The criminal infraction is charged under 5,000 or over 5,000, so it was charged for over 5,000. There was 6, either chair or bench in total. I don't know exactly. It was like 3 bench and 2 chairs or whatever, but it was 6 furniture in total that was damaged.
Okay. And are you allowed to tell us if it's a youth or not? Or
It was an adult. It was an adult,
It was
and
an
it's not a
adult.
resident of the of the borough.
not a resident?
not a
Okay.
resident.
So what usually happens in that case? I mean, obviously it depends on the judge and all that, whether the person has a criminal record or not. But what do you perceive is happening to that situation or this case?
Well, on our part, he was arrested, transported to our detention center, and because if it's a small crime, sometimes we will give them a promise to appear in court. This person, we detained him, and he appeared in front of the judge, and it was the judge that freed him later on with some condition. One of them was not to come to the library of Pierrefonds. So if he sets foot in it, the staff will
Advise you.
call us, and he will be an extra charge of breaching his condition.
Okay.
And then, the sentence is, he's innocent until proven guilty, but if found guilty, he may face fine and probation, maybe
Okay.
jail time, depending on his record, but that's something
Right.
can't get into it right now.
No, I understand. Okay. Speaking of crime, what's the news on the murder on St. John, the Scopa murder? Is there any news on that? I guess a lot of people are obviously alarmed that this would happen in our, every time you hear the news and there's any event, whether it's a murder or whatever type of crime, everybody says like, well, I never thought this could happen in our community, but obviously it happens everywhere around the world. But I'm just wondering what's happening there, or what can you disclose to the public? In
Right
other
now, I
words?
cannot disclose a lot of information. It's still under investigation.
Okay.
If it, I think it's no secret from anybody that Mr. Scopa had some criminal past and some criminal activity.
Mm-hmm.
So if it reassured people, it's not you and me walking in the street, that would be shut down. So yes, it's scary. It's a murder. We don't want this in our community, but you have to take into context the person. Pierrefonds-Roxboro is very safe to walk around. I'll give you an example. We had 2 what we can consider armed robbery, which is theft using violence, 2 in the last months, and in 2 occasions, the victim and the suspect had some type of connection. They knew each other. There are some past, so it could happen. There's never zero crime or zero risk doesn't exist. But with prevention and also with policing, we're trying to bring it as a minimum and to make it very safe. So Pierrefonds-Roxboro, at almost at any time you can walk and feel safe, and you are safe.
Right. Thank you, and have a good holiday.
Thank you,
You too.
Mr.
Have a good
Stitt.
holiday.
Any other questions? D'autres questions de la part de nos citoyens? Sur ça, je vous souhaite joyeux Noël, bonne année.
Vous aussi,
Et à
joyeuse
l'an
fête.
prochain. Merci beaucoup.
Merci.
Avant qu'on commence avec la période des questions, j'ai quelques informations pour vous. C'est avec grande tristesse que nous avons appris le décès de M. George Springate à l'âge de 81 ans, le 20 novembre dernier à Ottawa. M. Springate était connu pour avoir mené une carrière multifacette, alors qu'il a été à la fois athlète, policier, avocat, professeur, commentateur sportif, député et juge. En 1989, il fut récipiendaire de l'Ordre du Canada pour ses contributions exceptionnelles à l'échelle nationale. J'ai été très attristé à l'annonce du décès de M. Springate, et ce fut un véritable honneur pour moi de côtoyer, et pour nous tous, de côtoyer Georges pendant plusieurs décennies. Pour moi, personnellement, au cours de ma vie sportive et ma carrière. Sachant qu'il savait toujours faire ce qui était bon et juste pour tous. Il continuera à m'inspirer dans ma vie professionnelle et personnelle, et je suis fier de continuer à faire vivre l'héritage qu'il nous a légué. Nous ne pourrons jamais l'oublier. Et avant que je continue, je vous demande donc d'observer une minute de silence à son honneur. Merci. Le Conseil a décidé de renommer le défilé de la Fête du Canada en son honneur. M. Springate a participé à tous nos défilés depuis des décennies, et ce jusqu'au dernier en 2019, malgré qu'il ait été affaibli par la maladie. So very proud, we are very honored for those of us that knew him and those of us that probably will read of him and have read of him, that we will from now on name our Canada Day Parade the George Springate Canada Day Parade. And this will be an annual tradition that we will continue hopefully for the decades to come. Le 21 novembre dernier, je remercie les résidents et les généreux donneurs qui sont venus à la collecte de sang du maire. Et l'objectif était de collecter 115 dons, mais on a battu le record à Pierrefonds-Roxboro 50 ans plus tard, et on a eu 130 personnes. So for those that sometimes look at material items as gifts, sometimes the best gift we can give to someone is the gift of life, and that is the ability to be able to donate blood when we can. And we were able to do this in large numbers, and it's something that I thank our community at large because collectively we were able to do this. So je remercie les résidents et, comme j'ai dit, la communauté, l'ouest de l'île en général pour cet accomplissement. J'ai quelques dossiers. Avant que je passe au dossier, je veux que M. Langevin nous parle un peu de la plantation des 400 arbres à Cloverdale.
en partenariat avec la coopérative Cloverdale qui nous a permis de planter 400 arbres. On a reboisé un espace qui était et qui est encore, je crois, pour encore 5-6 ans jusqu'à temps que les arbres deviennent matures, qui était un îlot de chaleur. It's a place where there's a lot of heat and it's absolutely awesome that we were able to replant and have somewhat of a forest. I was giving an example of one of the address when you're in one room and you look across the street when you're corner of Basswood and Alexander, you don't see the parking anymore. All you will see is trees. We're really proud with our partner at the Eco-Quartier, with Graham, who arrived with about 35 volunteers, plus another 30 volunteers. We were about like 75 volunteers total, including the mayor, who planted some trees. I planted some trees. Our colleague Catherine came by as well. Louise had her Citizen Saturday. But I mean, this is really something that our council is proud of. We want to continue to plant more trees on side of what we're doing in the public areas versus the private areas, because it's a cooperative. It's the biggest cooperative in Canada. And we really wanted to invest there. So I'm really pleased with this project and proud to announce it.
Merci, M. Langevin. C'est 400 arbres. Effectivement, on plante les arbres un peu partout sur le territoire grâce, entre autres, à l'équipe de M. Baudouin. Mais c'est sûr qu'on a planté, depuis notre arrivée, l'administration a planté plus de 3 000 arbres. Et ces 400, c'est quand même beaucoup pour un secteur que je peux vous dire qu'on ne pense pas nécessairement à la plantation des arbres. Et c'est pour ça on a mandaté M. Langevin avec ce dossier et on est très fiers de l'accomplissement. On a M. Christian Accade aussi dans la salle de l'Éco-Quartier. Je sais que l'Éco-Quartier était très présent aussi sur le terrain et je vous remercie tous encore. Nous nous excusons des délais en cette année transitoire pour la collecte des branches. Comme nous avons été surpris par l'extraordinaire première tombée de neige plus tôt ce mois-ci. Vous savez, je sais qu'on a eu des gens qui ont appelé concernant la collecte des branches. D'ailleurs, on avait tous les branches chez nous et je ne sais pas où sont nécessairement les branches, mais on continue de recevoir les appels. On a quelques facteurs. Oui, un facteur, c'est la neige qu'on a eue quand même tôt cette année, au mois de novembre, qu'il fallait utiliser les mêmes camions, transformer les camions pour faire la neige. Le problème qu'on a aussi, c'est que c'était une année de transition. On voulait faire la collecte 2 fois par année, le printemps et l'automne. Le printemps, même avec l'enjeu des inondations, ça a quand même bien été. Il y avait des gens qui sortaient les branches aussi pendant l'été, où on a spécifiquement demandé aussi aux gens de sortir les branches le printemps et 2 semaines à l'automne, au mois d'octobre au début, comme j'ai fait d'ailleurs. C'est sûr, avec la demande qu'on a eue à l'automne, surtout, on a encore les branches sur les terrains. Pas partout, mais sur les terrains. Je sais que M. Baudouin travaille très fort avec les employés, encore pour les prochaines semaines, ou jusqu'à temps qu'on ne peut pas, à cause de la température et la neige. On va continuer comme on fait depuis déjà 1 mois. On a arrêté pour une période de temps pour le tassement de neige et le chargement de neige, mais tout de suite après, on a recommencé pour aller chercher les branches. Il reste quelques secteurs encore qu'on n'a pas terminés. Et là, on va continuer pour les 2 prochaines semaines. Si la température nous permet, on va continuer et on va essayer de terminer ça. Honnêtement, et je ne suis pas ici pour vous donner des excuses, on est là pour assumer qu'on a fait ça comme une année de transition pour essayer de faire ça 2 fois par année, au lieu de faire les 9000 quelques collectes qu'on faisait les années avant. On avait, pour ceux et celles qui savent, 9400, M. Baudouin, quelque chose comme ça, collecte de branches sur le territoire. Des fois, un tas de branches, des fois, quelques branches. Mais il fallait quand même passer, les ramasser. Et là, on a décidé, le Conseil a décidé avec l'administration d'essayer de faire ça 2 fois, le printemps, comme c'est l'habitude pour des gens pour ramasser et nettoyer leurs cours, et l'automne, quand les gens font le taillage, etc. On sait très bien maintenant que ça n'a pas fonctionné, encore pour plusieurs raisons. On va analyser la situation pendant l'hiver et on va essayer de revenir l'année prochaine avec un autre modèle. Ça, je vous garantis, parce que même nous, encore pour plusieurs raisons, ce n'est pas pour blâmer, mais pour plusieurs raisons, ça n'a pas fonctionné comme on pensait. Là, il va rester sûrement des branches sur quelques terrains. On ne peut rien faire à ce moment-là. Si le gazon est endommagé le printemps, quand on va les enlever, là, on va déterminer qu'est-ce qu'on va faire à ce moment-là, comme on fait d'ailleurs pour le dommage qu'on cause pendant l'hiver avec les charrues ou autres. On passe le printemps pour réparer le gazon, comme c'est l'habitude de l'arrondissement depuis encore des décennies. Encore, ce n'est pas pour vous donner des excuses, c'est pour vous donner des faits. Et c'est pour cette raison que vous avez des branches encore sur vos terrains. Aussi, avec la tempête qu'on a eue, les branches ont tombé, surtout sur dans les vieux secteurs, comme, disons, Roxboro, une ex-ville qui date depuis 1914. On a des arbres matures sur le territoire. Et là, les gens y ont sorti ces branches-là après la collecte. Malheureusement, on ne peut pas revenir ramasser les branches dans ces secteurs où on a déjà complété. C'est juste ça que je voulais vous dire. Ligne réservée sur Gouin. Vous savez tous que cette ligne sera fonctionnelle à partir du mois de janvier. Maintenant, ce n'est pas confirmé encore si ça serait le mois de janvier ou février. On sait très bien, on a déjà, je parle avec des gens tout le temps, je croise des résidents qui demeurent dans le secteur comme moi, et les gens sont inquiets. Le trafic, ça va causer potentiellement dans l'est de l'arrondissement. Je vais vous donner une brève histoire de comment on est arrivé à cette situation. Ça faisait longtemps qu'on n'avait pas la chance de rencontrer les partenaires et les responsables, surtout de l'SPVM, pour trouver des meilleures solutions sur le territoire au niveau de mesures de mitigation avec l'éventualité des travaux pour le REM. On sait que le train va arrêter durant l'été 2021. Pas tout de suite, 2021, la ligne de montagne va arrêter. Entre-temps, il faut qu'on trouve des mesures de mitigation pour aider les gens de continuer de prendre le transport en commun. So having said that, we were finally invited to participate in some of the discussions surrounding the mitigating measures on our territory. And this is where we came, and I suggested with our teams many different scenarios in terms of how to deal with the folks that are taking the train, not only at Sunnybrook, but at Roxboro Pierrefonds. One of the options certainly was to have one lane that is designated as a bus lane as well as car sharing. And one of the conditions for that was to make sure that there was a bus lane also along the service road of the 13. Otherwise, the folks that would be on those buses would block at some point and they would be in traffic as well. So they assured us, and the other option was, or the other obligation that we imposed was that the traffic light be installed at the stop sign at the bottom of the hill on 13 and that would facilitate traffic there. They assured us that before the lane would be active, that traffic light would be functional. Pour le moment, on est rendu au mois de décembre, ce n'est pas arrivé encore. L'autre chose qui n'est pas arrivée, qu'on discutait aujourd'hui d'ailleurs, c'est que la voie réservée commence après l'arrêt sur Pitfield, mais pas avant. Et nous, on avait spécifiquement demandé, si on avait une voie réservée sur Gouin, ça prenait aussi, aussitôt qu'on tourne sur la 13, et continuer jusqu'à la 40, j'imagine, pour aller au métro. Ça, c'était l'arrangement qu'on avait fait avec l'STM. Mais avant ça, on avait demandé aux gens de considérer Sunnybrook. Parce que de prendre les gens de Sunnybrook, la gare, à prendre Sunnybrook, la rue, St. Regis, pour aller prendre la 40, c'est beaucoup plus facile et ça ne cause pas nécessairement le même trafic sur Gouin, où c'est déjà congestionné. Ça, c'était rejeté. Mais ils sont en analyse pour le moment pour voir au printemps s'ils peuvent mettre ça en place pour nous aider sur Gouin. L'autre chose que j'avais, ce n'est pas la première fois que je le dis, mais je vais le dire parce que c'est les faits. Parce que les gens demandent comment ça se fait que l'arrondissement était d'accord. On avait suggéré Boulevard des Sources, de la gare Roxboro. Très facile, on a la voie réservée sur des sources. Le problème, c'est que, rendu à de Salaberry, Dollar ne continue pas la voie réservée. Puis là, j'ai demandé à l'STM de continuer de parler avec les gens de Dollard-des-Ormeaux, nos collègues quand même, les gens avec qui on travaille très bien avec, de faire penser la nécessité d'avoir la voie réservée sur des sources pour enlever un peu de pression de boulevard Gouin. Là encore, ça, c'est en analyse. Saint-Jean, c'est exactement la même chose. Boulevard Saint-Charles, c'était la même chose. Nous, on était prêts pour mettre une voie réservée pour les navettes. Les navettes. On avait même des endroits spécifiques dans l'arrondissement pour mettre les gens dans les autobus et partir sur les voies réservées pour aller au métro ou wherever. So we were okay with putting the bus lanes on St. Charles and Kirkland for their reasons. Justified reasons, probably. They couldn't put a bus lane on St. Charles either. So our responsibility, notre responsabilité, c'est d'essayer de trouver des solutions pour nos résidents et les usagers du train, de les encourager de continuer de prendre les transports en commun, parce que c'est ça qu'on veut dans le fond. On ne veut pas plus de voitures, on veut des autobus. Les modes actifs et d'autres solutions. Un cocktail de transport, on l'appelle. Mais on est seul là-dedans. Et pour le moment, on a essayé de faire un projet pilote pour amener les gens sur Gouin, Pitfield et aller au métro. Qu'est-ce qui va arriver plus loin? Malheureusement, on n'est pas en contrôle de ça. Notre responsabilité, c'est comment on va trouver les moyens, les façons de sortir les gens de notre arrondissement efficacement. Et c'est ça qu'on a fait. Encore, c'est un projet pilote. La chose, c'est que si ça ne fonctionne pas, je pense qu'on peut arrêter ça n'importe quand. Ce n'est pas un fait accompli. Et l'autre chose, on le fait tôt, avant que le train arrête en 2021. Ça veut dire qu'il va y avoir des gens qui vont continuer de prendre le train jusqu'à Bois-Franc. Puis là, à Bois-Franc, il va y avoir d'autres modes de transport pour les amener au métro. Ça va continuer jusqu'au 2021 à l'été. Ça veut dire, entre-temps, les deux vont fonctionner, puis on verra qu'est-ce qui va fonctionner. Mais le printemps, ils ont dit que le printemps, ils vont nous revenir avec d'autres options pour sortir les gens de Pierrefonds-Roxboro, mais aussi pour retourner. Parce qu'ils voulaient faire une voie réservée sur Gouin, direction ouest, qu'on a refusé. Parce que, imaginez, Gouin, les deux côtés, matin et le soir, un voie seulement pour les voitures. Et là, on a refusé et on a demandé de considérer Sunnybrook pour le retour. Là, ils ne sont pas rendus là encore, mais c'est ça qu'ils pensent. Et la raison pourquoi j'ai refusé, c'est que j'ai demandé pour l'autre côté de la 13, Pitfield, mais l'autre côté, qui est sur le territoire de Saint-Laurent. Mais Saint-Laurent a refusé. Et la raison pourquoi Saint-Laurent a refusé, c'est que c'est déjà débordé à cet endroit. Je comprends leur décision. Ce n'est pas une critique contre eux, c'est la réalité. Eux, ils ont décidé de ne pas faire la voie réservée. Ça veut dire que nous, on est pris avec la situation, comment les gens vont retourner chez nous. Et là, on va évaluer ça dans les prochains mois là, pour voir qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire pour donner un meilleur service. Encore, ça reste avec nous, mais les solutions qu'on a déjà, même, je vous donne un dernier, parce que now it's important, now I'm getting emotional about it. Jacques Bizard, on avait suggéré, j'ai dit que je suis prêt à ouvrir Jacques Bizard pour les autobus seulement. Ça va au moins enlever un peu de trafic de boulevard Pierrefonds, Gouin, etc. J'ai dit, au moins en attendant, comme un projet pilote, je peux ouvrir. Puis je vais aller porte à porte avec le Conseil, essayer de convaincre les résidents que c'est la meilleure chose à faire sur notre territoire. Pour le moment, au moins, pour aider les gens, nos voisins. Mais là, rendu à Oakwood, on ne peut pas continuer sur Somerset. Vous voyez là, on est enclavé dans un secteur où il faut donner un service, il faut aider les gens, trouver des solutions pour les gens de Pierrefonds-Roxboro, mais les gens aussi de d'autres arrondissements et villes. Et on est là, on assume la décision d'utiliser Gouin pour le moment. Ce n'est pas idéal, on sait très bien que ça va causer beaucoup de problèmes. Mais il faut commencer à quelque part. Et là, j'espère, avec les discussions qu'on a eues avec les responsables de l'STM, entre autres, on va essayer de travailler avec nos collègues dans les autres villes pour trouver des solutions qui vont aider les gens de l'ouest de l'île, parce que dans le fond, c'est les gens de l'ouest de l'île qui vont bénéficier. All right. I have two more things. Peut-être, M. Langevin, vous pouvez parler des dons de manteaux.
Donc, on a un nouveau programme. En fait, on avait un programme pour ramasser les denrées dans nos édifices municipaux principaux. La semaine dernière, et je me suis dit, après, parce que, comme certains d'entre vous savez, j'ai le mandat de l'itinérance à Montréal. Et ce qu'on réalise, c'est qu'on a beaucoup de personnes itinérantes, incluant dans l'ouest de l'île, qui n'ont pas de toit sur la tête ou qui sont dans une situation de transition qui font en sorte qu'ils doivent requiert à des stratégies de survie qui sont complètement inhumaines. Fait que ce que je me suis dit, comment est-ce que l'arrondissement pourrait renchérir, comment l'arrondissement pourrait faire un plus de ce qu'on fait déjà, à compter de demain, jusqu'à la fin du mois de décembre, on va organiser une collecte de manteaux. Si vous avez des manteaux qui traînent à la maison, you have jackets, you're changing your jacket this year, it's not trendy anymore,
Winter
it's fine.
coats.
Winter coats. We need winter coats, and those winter coats will be distributed to citizens living in Pierrefonds-Roxboro because there is a need. I was thinking at the beginning of the program, I was thinking of giving them to Oldbury Mission, the West Isle Mission, the Welcome All Mission, or any bigger nonprofit that deals with chronic homelessness. But our services called our local groups, and they all said that they would know where to give those jackets. So, Centre d'intégration de l'Ouest de l'île, 6 mois would take some on 1 week, and the next week it would be the West Island Assistance Funds, and the week after would be Carrefour 612, Pierrefonds West, and Cloverdale Multi-Ressources. It could be brand new ones too. If you feel generous, big parkas, you bring them to the library, and we will give those jackets. And also, if you have kids' jackets, they're also welcome. So, at the beginning of tomorrow, will come and give us jackets. Thank you.
Merci, M. Langevin. Thank you. Madame Talbot, concernant la culture.
Bonsoir. Bonsoir. Good evening. Je me promène dans l'arrondissement et aussi à Montréal et je m'occupe de la culture et j'aime bien ce dossier. Je vous fais un petit rapport de ce que j'ai vu et ce qui est à venir dans les prochains jours. Alors, je commence par le spectacle à joie, qui était un spectacle bénéfice qui avait lieu au Collège Beaubois le 22 novembre avec des gens très talentueux. Et c'était vraiment très bien, même impressionnant. Last Saturday, there was at Sainte Geneviève the concert of the group Cantabile, directed by it's the choir of Cantabile with an orchestra, with a soprano and with a baritone. It was absolutely amazing. It was the Vespers of Mozart and Te Deum of Dvorak, and I think that Cantabile did a great job. Les concerts à venir, il y en aura à Sainte-Geneviève, à Saint-Raphaël et à Annunciation Parish, which is not, I believe, in Pierrefonds, but still it is the West Island Choir, West Island Orchestra, the youngsters that have an orchestra directed by, I don't remember the name, I think the former one retired, but if you can make it, the concert at Paroisse de Annonciation will be on the 14th of December. Then you have le 15 décembre, vous avez 2 concerts, vous avez le choix, un à l'église Saint-Raphaël avec le groupe Opus et un à l'église de Sainte-Geneviève avec le groupe des symphonies vocales. Alors j'imagine que ça va être des beaux concerts de Noël. Maintenant, il y a aussi des expositions, puis on a aussi des artistes sur notre territoire. Une dame qui fait de très belles choses, Catherine Batsava, j'espère que je n'ai pas trop mal prononcé son nom, qui a exposé tout récemment au Centre d'art sur West Park, dans de l'art des Ormeaux. Et c'est une citoyenne de Pierrefonds. Elle a aussi mis ses œuvres, qui étaient des œuvres plus style cadeau de Noël, à l'église Saint-Thomas Becket tout récemment. Une exposition actuelle dans notre salle d'exposition au Centre culturel. L'artiste McIntyre, qui participe à nos parades, qui va maintenant s'appeler la parade George Springate, et elle expose durant le mois de décembre. Je pense que c'est à considérer. Je crois que vous pouvez faire cette visite avec vos enfants, c'est très bien. Une exposition à ne pas manquer. Les Incas, c'est le Pérou. The exposition is at Pointe-à-Calière. Pointe-à-Calière vous présente cette exposition. Elle durera au mois de octobre, novembre, décembre, c'est-à-dire novembre et décembre. Il y a des artefacts, des objets d'art. Je pense qu'il y en a 300. C'est vraiment à ne pas manquer. Et profitez de l'occasion lorsque vous irez à cette belle exposition au musée de la Pointe-à-Calière pour vous promener un peu dans nos belles rues du Vieux-Montréal. Alors, je vous remercie, Monsieur le maire.
Merci,
et nos conseillers.
Merci, Mme Talbot. Depuis quelques semaines, l'arrondissement et les citoyens du quartier ont pu constater que les odeurs qui se dégagent du site enfouissement de matériaux secs dans l'ancienne carrière Maloche sont plus intenses. L'arrondissement a redoublé d'efforts afin de faire les démarches nécessaires auprès des autorités responsables pour faire une mise au point sur l'état de la situation. Comme annoncé par voie de communiqué en septembre dernier par l'arrondissement, les travaux de fermeture sont en cours depuis 3 mois. Présentement, l'entrepreneur a débuté le forage de 35 puits verticaux afin de capturer les biogaz qui sont à l'origine des odeurs qui s'échappent dans le quartier. Or, cette phase des opérations est directement liée aux odeurs fortes car d'importants forages ont été creusés dans les matières enfouies pour l'insertion des capteurs de biogaz. La torchère qui devait être installée à la fin des travaux de forage sera plutôt installée au cours de l'hiver 2020, soit après le forage de 15 premiers puits pour tenter de pallier à la situation. Au total, l'entreprise GFL prévoit qu'il prendra environ 18 mois pour terminer les travaux de fermeture du site d'enfouissement. So for the folks that live in the immediate area and the extended area of the quarry, we've been faced with pretty unpleasant odors in the area, particularly in the last, I would say the last over a month, 2 months now. It's always been present, but quite intense in the last little while. And that is simply because for over a year, the company that manages the site was waiting for authorization from the Minister of Environment in order for them to carry out the much-needed work that had to be the channeling and the installation of these 35 35, what's the technical term, Mr.? Wells, yes, wells that will be connected to a central 1 or 2 burners that will burn away all the gases. They're quite advanced in this work. They've been at it for several months now and have already almost completed the installation of 15. We've been told that once the 15 are finalized sometime soon, the burner will be installed to accommodate these 15 wells, which in their opinion will reduce the smell that people have been encountering with for the last little while. And then come the spring, the remainder of the wells will be installed, and then possibly a second burner installed, which will eliminate the odors, hopefully once and for all. To give you a little bit of history, in 1999, the vocation of the site was changed to collect dry material. 6 years ago, when we were in that pit, to be honest with you, we never believed that that site would ever be full. That's how deep we were. And then the vocation changed from a triage center to a fill, to where months ago we went in and that area was completely full to the top. Quite encouraging. The other thing that's contributing to the smell is that they've built a basin or dug a basin where every so often it's stirred, which is possibly the cause for most of the odors that people are encountering there. And so that will be covered with a membrane, and that will eliminate a lot of what people are encountering in that area. So, as unpleasant as it is, we're at the end of the road here. Something that we believed we would be at in 2023. Il nous disait en 2023, c'est là que ça va commencer, ça va fermer, puis c'est là que ça va commencer les travaux pour installer le système. Mais là, on est rendu en 2019. On a créé quand même beaucoup de pression. M. Gignac siège avec les citoyens, le ministère de l'Environnement et l'Environnement de Montréal, avec d'autres partenaires autour de la table pour discuter de A à Z qu'est-ce qui se passe à cette carrière. So we're at the end of the road, folks. And as unpleasant as it is now, we have been reassured that this will hopefully within 18 months be something of the past. Dernier item que j'ai, demain à 17h30, c'est l'illumination du sapin de Noël sur la terrasse avant la bibliothèque. Et comme d'habitude, on fait le chocolat chaud, on a la musique, on va allumer l'arbre comme c'est une tradition maintenant à Pierrefonds-Roxboro et maintenant surtout avec la bibliothèque magnifique que nous avons sur le site. L'autre chose qu'on fait, comme d'habitude dans nos événements, c'est qu'on a le panier mobile présent. And that traveling cart is there to make sure that we collect non-perishable goods for the needy families in our community and for the food banks that provide this service, not only at Christmas, but year-round. Et c'est pour cette raison qu'on a décidé de garder le panier mobile, pas juste aux événements qu'on fait à l'arrondissement, mais aussi dans les 2 bibliothèques pour un temps indéterminé, pour les gens qui ne sont pas capables d'assister à des événements, de passer aux bibliothèques et de laisser les dons. Et là, on va s'assurer qu'on distribue à nos 3, je pense qu'on a 3 présentement, cuisine, pas cuisine, mais les dépannages alimentaires. So the food banks that are on our territory, the 3 of them that we have, we'll make sure that all the goods that we distribute will go to them to benefit the families in our community. Sur ça, je vous remercie. Je m'excuse de prendre le temps, mais c'est important d'expliquer ça comme il faut. Et encore, si vous avez des questions à l'avenir sur ces sujets, je vous encourage de communiquer avec l'administration ici, mais aussi avec les élus autour de cette table. Merci.
Alors, mesdames et messieurs, permettez-moi de vous rappeler que certaines règles s'appliquent lorsque vous vous adressez au Conseil d'arrondissement. Tout intervenant doit s'inscrire avant la séance du Conseil de façon à avoir le droit de poser des questions n'excédant pas 2. Lorsque vous posez votre question, vous devez obligatoirement vous adresser au maire qui préside la séance et non directement aux membres du Conseil. Votre question doit être claire et précise, sans préambule. Vous devez être poli et respectueux envers les membres du Conseil. Si vous ne respectez pas ces règles, vous serez invité à vous retirer et à quitter la salle du Conseil. La prise de photos, de vidéos et les enregistrements sont interdits sans la permission du maire. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to remind you that certain rules apply when you address Council members. Each individual is requested to register prior to the Council meeting in order to have the right to ask questions, not exceeding 2. When addressing the Council, you have to direct your questions solely to the Mayor presiding over the Council meeting and not directly to any Council member. Your question has to be clear and precise without preamble. You must be respectful and, if you do not respect, these rules, you will be asked to retire and to leave the Council chamber. Taking pictures, filming, and recording are forbidden without the Mayor's authorization. Monsieur Jim D'Alessandro.
Je voulais juste ajouter avant qu'on va aux questions, j'ai oublié un item, c'est la guignolée du Club Optimiste à Roxboro. Ils le font ce samedi à Roxboro, surtout dans l'école Lalande. Encore, si vous voulez participer, soit comme bénévole ou soit à 9h30 le matin. Et encore, si vous avez des dons, vous pouvez les apporter à l'école Lalande sur la rue 3e Avenue Sud à Roxboro. Rue transversale, c'est centre commercial. Ou si vous voulez donner quelques heures comme bénévole, juste se présenter sur les lieux. Merci. Monsieur D'Alessandro, good evening.
Good evening. Joyeux Noël à tous. Merry Christmas.
Merci.
Item sur l'agenda 40.05. Can you clarify the definition of this statement versus what was the original deposit when this act began? In other words, you are saying aménagement, landscaping only. Is that definition the same as it was when we started this 4 years ago?
Madame Castonguay, avez-vous la question technique pour Monsieur D'Alessandro?
Si je comprends bien votre question, selon moi, c'est la même définition qu'il y a 4 ans, conformément à la réglementation de zonage de l'arrondissement.
La réglementation que vous m'avez expliquée
Oui,
était le devant de la maison pour l'aménagement et l'entrée principale pour la charpente de driveway.
je n'ai pas toutes les spécifications ici aussi précises, là.
Est-ce que vous me donnez les assurances? Are you committed to agree that whatever this phrase is will reflect legally that it's the counter of what was requested 4.5 years ago? That is you can define it as you wish. La définition, vous pouvez me la donner comme vous voulez, mais je veux être certain, au moment qu'on se parle aujourd'hui, que la phrase ou l'amendement que vous faites ici est identique à celle que la demande qui m'a été faite ou celle que vous m'avez demandée en 2014. C'est tout.
Écoutez, je vais vérifier puis vous revenir.
C'est
Je sais qu'il y a des lettres qui vous avaient été envoyées pour les éléments de conformité à apporter. Ça demeure toujours la même chose. C'est le remboursement dont il est question ici aujourd'hui.
Là, on parle de remboursement seulement et pas de conformité.
Exact.
C'était pas l'arrangement que j'ai eu avec M. le maire et 3 fois avec M. Bernard.
Je vais vous revenir dans ce cas-là puis le vérifier.
C'est important que ça soit fait cette année, s'il vous plaît, avant la saison hivernale de Noël.
Regardez, M. D'Alessandro, à cause qu'on n'a pas l'information ici avec nous ce soir. Ce soir, on parle de remboursement seulement. Mais là, les questions sont notées, puis Mme Castonguay va faire un suivi là-dessus.
C'est la raison de la réunion, d'après ce que j'avais compris avec M. le maire, qui a été, M. Guy Bernard m'a avisé que ce n'était pas nécessaire. Alors, j'ai compris que tout était en ordre. OK?
Gardez, on va vérifier,
Merci.
M. D'Alessandro.
Joyeux
Merci
Noël.
beaucoup. Merci.
Edwin Wally.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
It's about the branch removal that
Yes.
you've discussed before.
Yes.
I've been in contact with 311 and all this business
Yes.
several times. I have several file numbers.
Yes.
I forgot to bring those with me.
Frustrating, isn't it?
Very.
I know.
We try to maintain our property in a nice manner, and we're not getting any help.
Well-
Whatever the reason, maybe because there's been a shortfall of funds allocated for this purpose, the change in the plan that was previously in place, was it city people or was it a contractor? What's been the change in this procedure that?
Well, I think, thank you very much for asking your question. As a matter of fact, when we decided to do this, if you were here a while back, was the idea that we had over 9,000 pickups in the community posed enormous mobilization in terms of our resources to go and pick up all these branches that sometimes wouldn't allow us to concentrate on other priorities that we had in the borough because of the fact that it was a continuous service that was being offered. Some people were putting out sometimes a handful of branches, like they were putting out, enormous amounts of branches. Sometimes they were making arrangements with their contractors. Contractors were cutting down trees and they were putting in front of properties and they were saying, well, the city's going to come by and pick that up. When really, when a contractor is hired, respectfully, has to make sure that they take all the branches. But what's happening a lot of the times was that wasn't the case because the resident wanted to save money by telling the contractor to put it in front of the property, and then our teams were responsible for doing this. And not in all cases, but in a lot of cases. And so when we looked at the numbers and we saw over 9,000 interventions in the summer, we said, well, how can we look at this service that we offer, condense it to the times of year that are primarily the times for pruning your trees or bushes, and concentrate on efforts on these two instances. The first time around, in the spring when we did it, we delayed it by 2 weeks because of the issues we were dealing with regarding the flooding. And then we were still able to make sure that we picked up the branches in a reasonable amount of time. In the fall, it posed a major problem for us, as you know, as we're living with today, that our teams are still, for the next couple of weeks, going around and picking up branches because of the sheer number of branches. So what we've asked Mr. Baudouin to do with his team is, following this year's interventions, to give us a report in terms of how many interventions did they deal with in these two peak periods. Because we as a council have to make a decision as we move forward. Did it change anything, or did it just make things a little more complicated? And from what we've seen this year, may not be the best year to judge it, but when we've seen this year, a lot of folks didn't even respect the door-to-door flyer that we sent out because it was a transitional year. People were putting them out throughout the summer, and we were getting calls in July and August. They have branches for a month on their property. And we're trying to explain to them, well, wait a second, we put this out, we did mass publicity, our communications department went all out to try to inform the public, yet unfortunately people don't always read what they get, and that's part of human nature. So all of that put together has resulted in where we are today. And unfortunately, there will be branches that may not get picked up by the end of the season. And that means that we're going to have to go in the spring and pick them up. And if we have to pick them up in the spring, and if we see that there's damage to the properties, then we will, like we do with everything else, make sure that we adjust and fix it when the time comes. But in the meantime, through the winter, we've asked Mr. Baudouin for the report, and we will analyze to see how we move forward and if it's something that we could bring back to how it was, or have a hybrid of how it used to be and how it is now, and come up with a viable solution, really, is what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I appreciate your comment, but I must admit that it is a gross failure this year. For whatever reason you choose to give, whether it was because of snow, which has disappeared, so there's no reason for a delay on snow
But they're
anymore.
going around. They're going around. When the
Yeah.
snow ended, we kept going around.
Yeah.
But you know, it's not because we're sitting at this side of the table that we're happy too, right?
No, I know.
We're unhappy with this situation as well, and if we could have avoided it, we would have. And I'm not one to ever pass the buck, sir. We assume our shortfalls like we assume our successes.
But what I would like is some sort of commitment or a response that this will get better, not worse, and not be completely eliminated.
Sir, it won't be eliminated. I can guarantee you the time that we're there, and it can only get better because this year was a disappointment for all of us, including our teams that are on the ground, because we all want to do better. You see from all the things that have been done on our territory, you use the floods as an example of how our teams were mobilized and how successful we were, thankfully. You know the commitment and the devotion of our personnel and our teams and our administration. And this is something that we know, and we share your concern. Believe me. And we're not happy about it either. And this is why we're going to readjust as we move forward and find a suitable solution that will solve the issues that we're dealing with this year and adjust as we go along. But because this being a transitional year and all the other factors I've mentioned to you, it wasn't at all what we wanted to see. And so we have to assume that. I have to assume that.
Just one other question. The clothing depot is at the library? What day, any particular days, or only tomorrow?
No. Starting tomorrow.
Starting tomorrow.
All the way down to end of December.
To the holidays.
Any type of clothing?
Coats.
Coats, jackets.
Coats and jackets, winter clothing?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to come tonight, sir.
Peut-être dire d'ajouter dans ton discours par rapport aux branches le site internet, le suivi qu'on fait en ligne.
The information, Mr. Langevin just reminded me, on the website we have a progress report, periodical progress report on the branch pickup, so you know what zones that the teams are in. And so I would urge you to go on that. I don't know how in real time that is, but it's something that is a tool, and you can always contact us directly, sir, and we can give you more up-to-date information as well. Oh, it's not clear enough.
It's not clear enough what the color coding mean.
Well, the color coding is just the different colors, the 19 sectors.
What's done and what's not done.
Well, that's what we're going to verify. Madame Palladini is going to check that and make sure that it's the way it is for us to read. And if I tell you the zone, like I've told zone 6, I mean, if you can't read the map, you don't know where that is. So we're going to make sure.
Yeah, like I say, it says the right zone, but the color coding doesn't tell me what's done and what isn't, and when they're going to get to me.
Okay, we'll check that out, sir. Thank you for pointing that out for us.
Sonia Fernandez.
Good evening.
Good evening. So I'm here to ask about my permits. So I don't know how it works, so I'm guessing it's after the question period, which is why I registered for the question period in case it wasn't.
Well, I see that one of the items on the agenda is your case, and I can't give you the outcome as we haven't voted on it yet.
But that's after the question period?
Yes.
I just don't know how it works.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
And if it's a favorable response, my question is, I met with Mr. Guy Bernard last week, and for the paper that he wanted from the engineer, my question was to expedite the time now because we're close to the frost. If it has to be the exact engineer that was already on the dossier, or if that engineer can't respond in a timely manner, if I could use an alternate engineer that would be able to respond right away.
Madame Castonguay, est-ce qu'elle peut utiliser une autre?
J'ai juste pas la réponse ici.
OK.
Je vais juste essayer de texter si je peux avoir la réponse avant que vous quittiez. Sinon, demain, je vais... tomorrow, sorry, I'm
It's okay,
going
it's
in
all good.
French.
I'm understanding very well.
Okay, so I will be able to give you a call back to let you know
Okay.
for the engineer.
As far as we know, you
Merci.
have your demolition permit?
Yes.
Right.
But I didn't do anything because Mr. Bernard said it wasn't a guarantee, so then I became afraid.
So we have it on the agenda tonight, Ms.
Thank you.
Fernandez, and
Thank you
if
very
you could just hold off for a little while there. Thank you.
Monsieur Rostit.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Bonsoir. Question 1, 3002. Why should we, the citizens, pay for these type of expenses? In the minutes of a past meeting, I'll just, for those who, it's to send three employees to a congress in Quebec City, February the 16th to 20th next year, 2020. In the minutes of a past meeting, I think it might have been March, but don't quote me on that, there was an approval of $30,000 for these type of expenses. I hope that was for the annual total budget. And personally, I find this is too much of the taxpayers' money. And I know that you will answer, Mr. Bass, that this is to better the functioning of the employees and, training or whatever, to make them better employees at the borough level. But to me, this is an over expense. I don't mean this particular one, but in general, if it's $30,000 a year, this one is $7,200 for a 4-day Congress. And despite the fact that I like all three employees, I don't think that we should be, as taxpayers, burdened with this type of expense. Especially in light of, to me, as I've mentioned in the past few months, I believe there's a lot more important items that our money should be spent on, especially public security, but not just that alone.
Do you have a question, sir?
That is my question.
What's your question?
Why should we, the citizens, pay for these type of expenses that seem to get higher and higher every year?
Well,
and what is the total? Is it $30,000 a year?
I don't have that figure in front of me, Mr. Stitt, but I can tell you that why we pay for these is not for the professional advancement of our employees necessarily all the time. In this particular case, we know that we are in the middle of elaborating a cultural plan for 2020. We know that with the opening of our library and with the over 130, almost 140 programs that we've offered through the library in terms of cultural offers for the residents, we feel it necessary that this one in particular is of great benefit to our teams that will also gain expertise and also be able to meet with the different stakeholders that could provide presentations to our community. And the citizens who already benefit from our growing cultural program will also see the benefits of this as our teams will come back with different ideas and different programs that they'll be able to offer to our citizens and different shows that they'll be able to provide to the residents of our community. And so we feel strongly about the professional development, yes, as is the case for the different services that you saw a while back when we passed a contract for all the different services going to their annual trade shows. But this one here is specific, dealing with culture. And when you have over 3,000 people that frequent the library on any given weekend day, on top of the over 1,000, if not more, people a day that go to a cultural point of assembly like the library, anytime we have an opportunity to be able to get more information on what we can offer to them, I think is beneficial to us all. And so I think that we welcome this type of expense, and we'll analyze it like we do everything else. And if we see that things weren't gained like we foresee, then we'll make adjustments for the next time. But we're quite optimistic by it, Mr. Stitt, and anxious to see what they come back with. Go ahead, Mr.
I could ask a sub-question, but then you'll probably consider the second question, which I don't want it to do. Gignac? Yes.
Okay, thank you. The Quebec government imposes on employers to spend 1% of their payroll on training, formation, and all of that. So 1% of what it is in Pierrefonds is way above the 30,000 that you're talking about, not all of which is spent on attending conferences or shows. It could be in a class training or anything like that. So it's not an additional expense, and regardless, it comes from taxpayers' money anyway.
And this, Mr. Stitt, is really for them to have a glance of what type of presentations and shows are offered throughout Quebec, and for them to bring back some of the some of the presentations that they see and they like and they see fit in our community, they're able to make those arrangements and have the contacts when they go to this trade show. Like we all go to trade shows and we find contacts and some things that benefit our community, and we bring it back and give it to the services. They do the same thing. And so in order for us to grow as a community in the cultural sphere, this is absolutely necessary.
Just to add to that, or there'll be a point where the taxpayer cannot afford, not this item, but in general, it's always more, and eventually, maybe not in my lifetime, but there will be a saturation point, or hopefully a rebellion against always being taxed and all different things. And the government seems
we legally we're bound to balance the budgets, as you know, Mr. Stitt. We've done this quite effectively in the times and actually even before us, but the time we've been there, our tax rate has been really, really good compared to other boroughs. We hear with what's going on in Montreal in the last week that I think we're managing our budgets really well. In terms of predicting what it will be in someone else's lifetime, I think it's very difficult to do that, but I can tell you the time that we've been here, we've been very responsible with the spending and thus been able to keep our taxes to a manageable level that have allowed residents like all of us the capacity to be able to live where we do. So,
but we have a long-term debt. We have a long-term debt.
Your point is made, and in fact, like I said, I urge you to look at the news of last week and tell me what you think thereafter. What's your second question, sir?
My second, now that you mentioned it, long-term debt. Yeah, okay. My second question, and perhaps you touched on it because I know another man was here asking about the same thing, is the branch pickup, or what I would call the non-branch pickup.
Sir, that's unfair.
Why is it unfair?
It's unfair, and it's disrespectful to the services and to my employees who do an extraordinary job day in and day out, sir. It is not a non-branch pickup. It is a branch pickup that unfortunately encountered obstacles this year that has brought us to this situation. And by saying it's a non-branch, sorry, let me finish, please.
Okay.
When you say it's a non-branch, you could look around the room all you want, sir. What I'm saying to you is when you disrespect the staff, you disrespect everybody at this table. And our staff has tirelessly worked around the clock to make sure that they provide the services to you and your neighbors. And the branch pickup is one of those things, unfortunately, this year that didn't work out the way we would have liked. And we're making adjustments, as I mentioned to the other gentleman, and hopefully we'll find a solution that's going to benefit everyone next year and in the years to come. For this year, yes, it was an issue. It still continues to be an issue, but the teams are working around the clock on top of the other responsibilities. So a non-branch pickup, I think, is disrespectful to the staff that does the work every day. What's your question,
did you change the system on that? Did you subcontract, or is it all our public workers doing it?
It's our public works, sir. That's your question.
There's no subcontractors doing that branch pickup?
No subcontractors, sir. It's our public works doing the work.
So why is it taking them so long to pick them up? What's the problem?
Mr. Stitt, that's your last question. I will answer it.
Well, it's the same question,
I will answer it respectfully.
Because now we're into
you want me to answer it, or you want to talk?
Well, I'm just going to say that we're into December. The snow's covering all the branches on the street, so what is the answer?
Mr. Stitt, the question you asked, why is it in this situation, right?
Yes.
And I mentioned I don't know if you were listening earlier or you were outside of the room.
No, I was outside, I'm sorry.
Well, there you go. In the web diffusion, you'll hear the clear answer, but in a short way, the reason is because we've encountered not only the number of branches that we predicted for the fall, but many more pickups that we didn't anticipate having when we had a pickup twice a year. Not to mention the early snowfall that we had, that our trucks had to be transformed to loaders and snow blowing equipment. And so those same trucks that are used for the branch pickups had to be transformed to the snow operations. And because of that, definitely slowed us down, but we were already slower than we would normally be because the pickup was so condensed in a short period that there were massive amounts of branches put out everywhere, which we just couldn't keep up with at the rate that we're used to. Having said that, though, if you listen to me what I said before, we are in communication with our services. We will analyze what happened this year and make sure we find corrections for the next year and the years to come. Because, and I mentioned before, and if you weren't here, you're going to hear it now. It's not because we're here telling you that we're happier than you are. We're still not happy with the service that we provided this year for the branches. Anything I tell you less than that or more than that, Mr. Stitt, wouldn't be true.
No, that's
So
good.
we're unhappy by it as well.
Good.
So by that being the case, there's nothing more I can tell you than the teams have been working tirelessly around the clock to make sure that they try to catch up. Unfortunately, there may be some homes that have the branches, and then in those cases, we will deal with it in the spring like we have to responsibly. Unfortunately, there is no other choice.
Well, it's
coming
not
this
just
year.
homes, there's streets and blocks and areas, obviously, that haven't been picked up.
I know them
and
all,
I'm not,
Mr. Stitt.
obviously, I'm not here to complain about the blue-collar workers. I support the blue-collar workers, so that's the last thing I want to do.
But you
I
just
was
said-
curious to know
Yeah.
that if you had subcontracted that out, perhaps that was why there was a diminution of services. And I hope you study it, and maybe we could go back to the former system. It
Mr.
was
Stitt,
better.
I just told you we're going to analyze it. Thank you very much,
Good,
sir.
thank you.
And our staff is extraordinary, Mr. Stitt. Our staff is extraordinary. I will
I
say
agree.
it. I will say it continuously. People around this table and our staff working day in and day out is extraordinary, and I've been on both sides of that table. Next question, please.
Monsieur Varouj Artokoun.
Bonsoir et joyeux Noël à tous.
Bonsoir, joyeux Noël.
Mayor, thank you for taking my questions. Regarding the quarry, as you're probably aware, I live right behind it. I'm lucky enough that the wind actually comes from the north, so I'm not on the Oakwood side, but when there's no wind, it's bad. I totally get, and I love the communication. One thing, let's over-communicate with the citizens, whatever way it is on the web or something, because that reduces the number of questions and rumors that are out there.
Thank you, Mr. One thing we have to say about the quarry, I know you didn't ask a question, but this has been an ongoing issue for decades in our community. It's an issue that we inherited, that we were hopeful in putting an end to it. We were sure that there would be no extension of any contract once the time came. We were clear on working with the Minister of Environment and the Environment Montreal to make sure that they do proper analysis of the air quality in the area to see if it's safe, which they do on a regular basis. They were there the other day as well. Pardon me. They have a mobile unit that is dispatched as well to do air quality of the different roads to make sure that it is at least safe in those areas. And as far as we know, all of those tests haven't detected anything of concern. Now, we have to gauge that by the experts that tell us this. I mean, we go there, it is unpleasant. I know, I go there every day, and to make sure where it is and what, I mean, I was in Kirkland the other day, and you could smell it in Kirkland because of the way the wind was. So I can only imagine the neighboring residents. But on a bright side, it is at the end of the process.
Absolutely, I understand that.
And the company that is managing it now had to wait for a short delay from the Minister of Environment to get the certification in order for them to carry out the work. The committee that's in place knew already in advance that they had already ordered the equipment and the material they needed before the ministry gave them even the certification, because they anticipated getting it. So they didn't want to delay waiting for the equipment. So as soon as they got the go-ahead, they started digging to try to install all this material, which unfortunately are able to install only 15 of the wells and not the 35
Absolutely.
or so. So we're near the end, and the communication is a note that's well taken.
Yeah, and I see them behind anyways, 50 meters away, the trucks are rolling and the pipes are being installed.
Yeah.
And I remember the fire truck sitting right beside my house for 2 months when the fire was on fire. So we've lived through it for 22 years.
Yeah.
So my question is, beyond the 18 months, so we get into the summer of 2021, what are the plans beyond that? What's being thought? It's going to soil up? Are we going to sod it? That's, I think, a little bit of vision would help out. Is Kimber going to be opened? Is Oakwood going to be opened to have access for people to enjoy that area then?
I think it's premature for me to tell you the final product. What we know is, according to the contract, that land is to be given back to the City of Montreal, to the borough, to the residents, as was the case in the Miron Quarry, if you know, on Papineau. That was many, many decades of that quarry, which was probably 10 times the size of, if not more, of Pierrefonds Quarry. that just now is starting to take shape.
Yeah, you have
and
the
become,
Toyota there and everything there
and
now.
you know, the TOU is there,
Yeah.
the soccer stadium is there, the Taz skate park is there, and even Papineau was bordered in a way to give people that lived there something else to look at and not this quarry, because, you know, they were held hostage for many years living in that environment. The idea is that land is given back to the city. There's not much you can do on it. We can't build on it.
No.
It can be a green space and utilized by the citizens to, you know, walk about. But again, that is premature for me to tell you what the final vision of that site will be. My concern, and it has always been our concern, that's why 6 years ago we were in the pit to get a clear portrait of what was happening. This is why meetings are held on a regular basis where we have 2 citizens that sit on it, that live in the neighborhood, is to close it and make sure we find a solution once and for all to make sure that that smell dissipates. For a year, we didn't have trucks going in and out. You saw the result of that on Oakwood. There was no mud. The street was clean. And now we're seeing it again because we're getting machinery going in and out because they're installing all these pipes. So we're at the end. And as unpleasant as it is for people, even the company that's managing it, and as we mentioned, I believe in one of the communiques that we put out, they said that it's only going to get worse before it gets better, and they told us last week that we're in that worst now.
Okay.
So I can't think anything more than that. And the Minister of Environment is on top of it, and we're being given that information on a pretty real-time basis. And the Communication Department with Madame Palladini and Mr. Gignac will continue to provide information, not only through our local social feeds and everything, but to the citizens like you got on Saturday in this document.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Will the results of the tests be publicized?
I mean, listen,
Or
look,
is it going to be pass-fail, at least something, because we don't even know those results?
well, right now, they're telling us that
It's
nothing
pass.
is detectable.
Right.
Nothing
Okay.
is detectable.
Okay.
That's the term they used, okay? So certainly these statistics aren't the city, it's not us, it's the Minister of Environment that does them. Certainly we can reach out to them and make sure that this information is public. I know that every time we've spoken to residents in this area, I know that Mr. Gignac, when he sits in this committee, provide that information whenever it's needed, and nothing is of concern and hasn't been through the course of all these years. So, but the point is well taken, and Madame Palladini is going to note this, and if there's something that we can put on our website, for example, as a bullet, you know, that will allow you to just click and find out when the last test was, what were the results, and if it's non-detected, at least write that it's non-detected, and then as people have that sense of security, you know?
Exactly.
Thank you, Mr.
I had one thing, I respect your challenge with the reserve lanes. One thing I've seen in the U.S. Driving there, electric cars are allowed in the reserve lanes.
Yeah.
Is that something that might eventually migrate into your thought process?
It did on sources. It was
Okay.
rejected at the time because, I mean, and honestly, it wasn't as popular as it is today.
Right.
We did mention that on Gouin. We didn't get an answer, favorable answer.
Okay.
We even had to push for the car sharing. I have to tell you, because they weren't even geared that way. I mean,
Oh,
they
really?
just wanted buses. I mean,
Buses.
I've even brought up in Montreal in these bus lanes to be used throughout the day, but be used as designated bike paths as well. And that's an issue that we were told is a problem with the unions and the bus drivers union that feel that it's not safe to have bikes on these lanes, which kind of makes sense. But I mean, we've brought up all these issues. But the electric, you know, I'm glad you bring it up because we're planning on something that we're going to be sending them tomorrow regarding what I mentioned earlier in the 13. We'll make sure we add that because West Island being what it is, and we have, I mean, look, in the borough ourselves, we've been able to mobilize and install our charging stations throughout the territory like other cities are doing. And so it's becoming a reality. I mean, people are more conscious and they're buying electric cars. And if we can piggyback them on a bike, on a bus lane, why not? So it's something that we're going to make sure, Madame Castonguay, when we do write them on the issues we spoke about earlier today, we'll make sure that we add that one as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Can I have, est-ce que je peux avoir un proposeur appuyeur pour un autre 15 minutes? Merci.
Monsieur Norm Garibian. Je m'excuse, non. Oui, c'est ça, Monsieur Norm Garibian.
Merci. Good evening, council members.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening.
So 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, I stood before you and spoke about the pits that were dug up in the Boileau, Pierre-Pascal, Dupuis area. And we had a discussion. You've put me in touch with some of the city engineers. It's changed nothing, but we've had this discussion. I want to report to you 3 incidents that happened on November 12th, recently when we had the snowfall. Early in the morning, as usual, my driveway was plowed in. I get to remove the city snow from my property without putting it back on the city's property. That's wonderful. But the point is that as the plows pass, because they have no reference marks, they plowed over 1, maybe 1.2 meters away from the curbs. Boileau is a very narrow street, and it makes access driving down there very difficult. That's the first thing that happened. Later on that day, I was working from home. I got the pleasure of watching the collection agents for the garbage pickup come by my house, and for whatever reason of frustration, they made an extra effort to throw my bucket into the ditch. These ditches make it even more difficult than usual for me to collect that bucket, you know, regardless of what their day is like. Later on that evening, as I'm driving home after picking up my wife from the train station, which I hope you guys will find a solution for that because I'm already dreading.
It's not us guys. It's them listening to us guys.
I hope everybody works together to find a solution.
I hope so too.
On the way home, Pascal, at the corner of Perrault, was blocked by a truck, city snow removal truck, that had fallen into the ditch. I've got video of both of these incidents. This is not the first time that one of your own vehicles, at probably great cost to yourself, has fallen into these ditches that we've created. When I spoke to the city engineers, they said that whichever administration, whichever branch worked on the original project didn't have the foresight to explore other options that are now available. And as I said 2 years ago when I stood here,
like what? What were the options?
I believe that river rocks with a membrane cover, which would have cost you a little more, or a proper sewage system. I'm sure your city engineers have better information on that than either you or I.
Yep.
So this is one of my primary complaints. I mean, in this process, I had a house fire almost exactly a year ago. The city came and reevaluated my house after the reconstruction. My property value, of all things, went up, despite the ditch. And I'm just thinking to myself that I'm living in a much more challenging environment. Mowing the grass is more difficult. Snow removal is more difficult. Navigating back and forth on my property is more difficult. And all of this with an increased tax bill. I'm not certain how this is bettering the lives of citizens.
Let me comment on some of the things you said. The narrowing of the streets is inevitable as you move through the winter, near the end of the winter, mid to late winter, because there's just so much room that the trucks can plow the snow. Something like this, I'd like to think that it was someone that maybe didn't feel familiar with the area like they should have, and the street should have been plowed larger than it was. The primary role on the third level street, like yours, like mine, especially on the first pass, is to make sure that they clear the snow enough for a vehicle to get through. Did they go back after that? I don't know. But Mr. Baudouin is here, he's listening to you, and he's going to make sure that he speaks to the teams that go in that area to find out why that is, and to make sure that he finds some type of measures that will correct that in the future. The truck being in the ditch, I mean, if that happened, I don't doubt you, you have it on video. I mean, that's something as well that I'm sure Mr. Baudouin is aware of, and it's probably somebody that wasn't paying attention to the area, had a small area to maneuver. Again, I'm guessing, right? It happened, and it's something that we'll look at. The ditches, unfortunately, whether we want to cover them or not, we aren't able to do that. The ditches are there because they're imposed to us by the Minister of Environment. If we were to, and the reason is because they become a natural retainer for water and a natural drainage system for water. And if we were to close the streets or the ditches and integrate a sewer system and have those sewers connect to the network that exists already, would completely oversaturate the already oversaturated system, and we would have flooding throughout other areas as collateral damage flows down towards the river from where you are. And so, as communities start to rebuild streets, for example, any new development that comes into a community, like we see throughout the West Island, Bay Durfee, St. Anne's, Beaconsfield, you can go to all of them because I've been to all of them. All of them, particularly the older areas, have ditches. And the reason is because if we could, once upon a time we had a program in Pierrefonds where every year we said when we did streets, if they had a ditch, that we would come up with some type of program to make sure that we put these systems in place and close them, and every year do 1 or 2 or 3 streets and so on. And then the Minister of Environment came down with the regulations that didn't allow us anymore, to the point where when we were to redo a street, that someone may have covered their ditch at some point through time, haphazardly, on their own. We were instructed to make sure that we bring it back to its original state. And that's why we have some streets, for example, where somebody will tell us, well, I bought the house, it was like this, and how come you're digging my ditch? It's because the person before you or before him or her had covered it without any knowledge from the city. And when we redo the street, there's no drainage in that area, which meant that all their water was going on their neighbors because they had ditches, and so we had to dig them as well. And eventually that ditch will drain itself, or the excess may drain into the further network, if you will. So that's the really short answer in terms of why the ditches are there. There are ways, however, to make sure that we recognize when there's a ditch. I know that Mr. Baudouin has a system in place for some of the problematic areas to install some type of system for his operators to see so they don't go in the ditch and the residents don't go in the ditch. And this is something I'm going to leave with Mr. Baudouin. He has your contact information and he can contact you and see what the situation is in your area and see if it's some of those things that he can do there, okay? Because I know it's an inconvenience for folks that, for many reasons. We've even dispatched, for example, our experts that will guide citizens in terms of what you can do in the ditch. Now all the new streets that we're doing, for example, that might have ditches, we're looking at other drainage systems where the bottom of that ditch might have, for example, riverstone. Won't be completely up to the ground, to the top, but it'll be a little higher than it is maybe in some of those ditches that are really deep, if you will. And so those are things that we're constantly exploring. We're exploring as well with, some of our partners in terms of what type of vegetation you can plant there. What can you plant there that'll become a perennial and not require you to address it and to cut it every time and risk that little hill all the time as the population is getting older. So there are solutions out there that we're looking at. And Mr. Baudouin will call you, okay? He has your number, and at least you can explore something for your particular case, and maybe he can more on a technical level, address some of the issues you've brought tonight.
Okay, sorry, just so I'm clear, you're saying that some residents have already had this discussion about mitigating methods for the ditch?
Well, there's folks that don't care that there's a ditch in front of their house. There are folks that
I'm just trying to address what you just told me. You said that some residents have had this conversation?
Not necessarily on your street, because we have other streets that have ditches.
But other residents in Pierrefonds who have ditches?
There are other residents in Pierrefonds that have ditches that brought up similar, cutting their grass has become problematic, for example. If, for example, we had no ditch where their property was and it was covered, decades ago, we have to redig it. That kind of stuff, yes. I mean, that's every time you do a street, whether it's a curb, whether it's a sidewalk, whether it's a light, whether it's a ditch, residents will give us their opinion on something. And so this is a constant sort of evolution to any file when we do a street. particularly with ditches, because there are people that don't like them, despite the fact that they exist everywhere and we're not permitted, unfortunately, to cover them. Unfortunately, because if we could, no longer. If we had the capacity financially and we were able to do it, for sure knowing that it wouldn't pose a problem downstream, if you will, then certainly that would be something that we would consider, because we were considering it once upon a time, years ago. And then pre-2009, 2010, Madame Castonguay, if I'm not mistaken, the Minister of Environment imposed that every time we were to do a street where ditches were there and there was no storm sewer system in place, that those ditches had to be put back in place. And that's exactly what we've been doing. We've been following all that to the letter, and as much as possible communicating that information to the citizens. As unhappy as some of them may be, it's something that unfortunately for primarily environmental issues has to be maintained, and this is why we continue to do it. And that natural retention of water in a ditch is less an effect on everything else, including the flooding that we saw in some neighborhoods where we weren't even near the rivers because the system was so saturated it didn't have the capacity to flow all the water that was going in. And it would be even worse if we had all those streets connected to that same network, is what I'm saying.
Okay. And just as a final note, I've driven around my neighborhood. Not all ditches are created equally.
Well, there's an engineering reason for that, and we struggle with this as well, because at a glance, we look at it too, and how many times I've gone to Madame Castonguay's office and I said, listen, this address, you have to go check it, and then they'll come back to me with an explanation of why it is, and then when we go back to the resident, more often than not, they'll understand as well why it is. What we've done since some of this has happened is every time we do a street where there's a ditch, we make sure that we try to communicate that information well in advance so the public knows exactly what's going on the street, so that they can better understand the reasoning, so you don't have to come here and address some of the issues that you may be getting before the job even starts, if you will. And so we're conscious of that, and we understand the concern it causes for a lot of folks.
We were told that there would be no ditches during construction.
I don't know who told you that.
The construction workers.
Well, you know, listen, I can't control the construction workers, you know.
But that's misinformation that was not otherwise communicated.
But you know what? I'm extremely happy you told us this, because there are other cases where construction workers will tell a resident something that is the furthest from the truth, and then when we intervene with the construction companies and tell them, what are your employees telling our people, because none of that is true, then they get back to the facts. So this isn't new to us. I mean, our employees, we can reprimand, we can speak to, we can educate, we can tell them what to say, what they have to say, what is facts. But everybody else, like social media, I can't control anything. And if a construction worker is there and saying, I have construction workers that'll say, just call the mayor's going to fix that. What do you mean? I mean, as much as I want to fix it, the mayor can't fix it just like that. So I'm just trying to give you perspective, you know, and respectfully, I'm trying to give you perspective so that you understand what we deal with on a kind of regular basis as well. But Mr. Baudouin will call you, sir, and hopefully come with some answers to you, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Have a good.
Thank you. Thank you as well.
Alors, ça prendra un proposeur et un appuyeur pour prolonger de 15 minutes une fois qu'on aura disposé de l'ordre du jour.
Je propose. J'appuie.
Merci. Alors, nous allons passer à l'adoption de l'ordre du jour. Que l'ordre du jour de la séance ordinaire du Conseil de l'arrondissement de Pierrefonds-Roxboro du 2 décembre 2019 soit adopté tel que soumis.
Je propose. J'appuie.
Pardon. « 10-04, c'est ça, Mme Corbeil? Merci. Que soit approuvé le procès-verbal de la séance ordinaire du Conseil d'arrondissement tenue le 4 novembre 2019 à 19h. 10-05, que le Conseil prenne acte du dépôt de déclaration pécuniaire des conseillers d'arrondissement de Pierrefonds-Roxboro, Mme Louise Leroux et M. Gignac.
Je propose.
Merci. 10.06. Que soit adopté le calendrier d'établissant, la date et l'heure du début des séances ordinaires du Conseil d'arrondissement pour l'année 2020.
Je propose. J'appuie.
20.01. Pardon, oui, c'est ça. 20.01, Monsieur Langevin.
that the council grant a subsidy in the amount of $2,705.37 from the 2019 operating budget to the Association de Natation Briarwood to cover the cost related to urgent repair incurred by the organization during the preparation for the opening of Briarwood swimming pool for the 2019 season.
Merci. 2002, Mme Talbot.
Que le Conseil accorde une subvention montant de 300 provenant du budget de fonctionnement 2019 à l'organisme Mission de l'Ouest de l'île pour le programme de panier de Noël qui aura lieu le 14 décembre.
J'appuie.
20.03, Mme Leroux.
Oui, que le Conseil accorde une subvention annuelle au montant de 300 provenant du budget de fonctionnement 2019 à l'organisme communautaire Centre Action bénévole de l'Ouest de l'île.
Je propose.
J'appuie.
Merci. 20.04, M. Gignac.
Que le Conseil accorde une subvention avec convention au montant de 1 700 provenant du budget de fonctionnement 2019 à l'organisme communautaire Club Roxboro 60+, pour l'année 2019 et autorise Mme Louise Zampini, chef de division Culture, Bibliothèque et Développement social, à signer la convention au nom de la Ville.
Je propose. J'appuie.
20.05, M. Langevin.
Que le Conseil approuve le projet de convention entre la Ville de Montréal et l'organisme communautaire Action Jeunesse de l'Ouest de l'île pour la consolidation du programme montréalais de soutien à l'action citoyenne en sécurité urbaine et octroie une subvention avec convention au montant de 12 500 $ payés par la Ville-Centre pour l'année 2019-2020, que le Conseil autorise Mme Louise Zampini, chef de division Culture, Bibliothèque et Développement social, à signer la convention au nom de la Ville.
Je propose.
J'appuie.
Merci. 20.06. That the council grant a subsidy in the amount of $14,733 paid by the Central City for the period from November 1st, 2019 to October 31st, 2020 to Cloverdale Multi-Resource, Inc., which acts as a trustee for the Collective Mobilization Initiative as part of the Initiative montréalaise de soutien au développement social local, and authorize Mme Louise Zampini, Head of Division Cultural Libraries Social Development, to sign said agreement on behalf of the city.
Je propose.
J'appuie.
Merci. 20.07, que le Conseil autorise, dans le cadre du contrat ST 19-18, une dépense totale de 644 111,57, à savoir 565 et 1010 et 15, taxes incluses pour le contrat 56, 501 et 2, taxes incluses pour les contingences, et 22 641 taxes incluses pour les incidences pour des travaux de drainage, d'aménagement paysager et des travaux connexes à différentes adresses dans l'arrondissement de Pierrefonds-Roxboro, que le Conseil accorde le contrat au deuxième soumissionnaire conforme Alley Excavation Inc. au montant de sa soumission, soit 565 010 et 15 taxes incluses.
Je propose.
J'appuie.
Merci. 30.01, M. Gignac.
Que soit approuvée la reddition financière au montant de 812 626,05 pour la période du 21 septembre au 25 octobre 2019.
Je propose.
J'appuie.
Merci. 30.02, Mme Talbot.
Merci, Monsieur le maire. Que le Conseil... Oui, il est là. Il est là. Ah, bon. D'accord. OK. Alors, avec beaucoup de fierté, que le Conseil autorise Mesdames Francine Gervais, directrice culture, sport, loisirs et développement social, Louise Zampini, chef de division culture, bibliothèque et développement social, et Judith de Repentigny, agente culturelle, à assister au congrès du regroupement de diffuseurs professionnels des spectacles rideaux qui se tiendra du 16 au 20 février 2020 à Québec, et autorise une dépense maximale de 7 200 $, taxes incluses, à même le budget de fonctionnement 2019.
J'appuie.
C'est bien le 2019, hein? C'est le budget de fonctionnement 2019?
Oui.
Oui, merci.
40.01. Que soit adopté le règlement mentionné sur le traitement des membres du Conseil d'arrondissement de Pierrefonds-Roxboro afin de fixer la rémunération des conseillers d'arrondissement ainsi que la rémunération de la présidence du comité consultatif d'urbanisme.
Il faudrait peut-être que quelqu'un propose puis appuie. Moi, ça me
Non, c'est Mme Talbot et M. Langevin.
Je propose.
Alors, je peux appuyer.
Parfait. 4002, Mme Talbot.
4002, c'est nouveau que je l'ai. Que soit adopté le règlement CA 29-0117 sur la tarification de divers biens et activités et services municipaux pour l'exercice financier 2020.
Je propose.
Merci. 4003, Mme Leroux.
Que soit adopté le règlement CA 29-0118 concernant la taxe relative aux services pour l'exercice financier de 2020.
Je propose.
J'appuie.
4004, M. Langevin.
Que soit autorisé le remboursement du dépôt de la garantie financière d'une valeur de 2 000 reçu numéro BA 2014-04-802 pour l'aménagement extérieur au 17 3e Avenue Nord, malgré les non-conformités au règlement de zonage CA 29-0040.
Je propose.
J'appuie.
Merci. 4005, Mme Leroux.
Que soit autorisé le remboursement du dépôt de la garantie financière d'une valeur de 2 000 reçu numéro BA 2014-02679 pour l'aménagement extérieur au 12 769 rue Camiran, malgré les non-conformités au règlement de zonage CA 29-0040.
Je propose.
J'appuie.
Merci. 4006. 4006, que malgré la recommandation de la Direction d'aménagement urbain et services aux entreprises, le Conseil autorise la délivrance du permis de construction sur le lot 1-842-830, que soit dénoncé le risque d'inondation sur le terrain visé par la présente demande de permis en vertu de dispositions de l'article 6 de la Loi sur la sécurité civile, compte tenu du fait que la propriété a été partiellement inondée en 2017 et en 2019.
Je propose.
J'appuie.
4007, M. Langevin.
That be approved the cadastral operation under minute number 33,555 prepared by Éric Denicourt, land surveyor, on December 6th, 2018, showing the creation of lot 6,291,134 and 6,291,135, the Cadastre of Quebec, Montreal registration, replacing lot 1,899,966 at 103 Rue des Lauriers, and that be accepted the payment of a compensatory sum of $35,800 in application of the bylaw concerning a land transfer for the establishment, maintenance, and improvement of park and playgrounds, and the preservation of natural areas within the territory of the Ville de Montréal.
Merci. Merci. 4008, M. Gignac.
Que soit approuvé le PIA pour l'installation d'une clôture de mailles autour d'un terrain riverain au 5181 rue d'Auville.
Je propose.
J'appuie. 40.09.
40.09, Mme Leroux.
Que soit dénoncé en vertu de la loi de la sécurité civile le risque d'inondation à l'occupant du 6030 rue Saraguet-Ouest, lot 1388193 du Cadastre du Québec, dans le cadre de l'autorisation pour la construction d'une nouvelle résidence unifamiliale isolée sur cette propriété, que le Conseil d'arrondissement autorise la délivrance du permis de construction.
Je propose.
J'appuie.
4010. C'est un avis de motion que le conseiller inscrit pour l'adoption à une séance subséquente le projet de règlement CA 290119 autorisant l'emprunt de 3 millions pour le financement des travaux de réaménagement de parcs et espaces verts sur le territoire de l'arrondissement de Pierrefonds-Roxboro, lequel est déposé avec le sommaire décisionnel.
Je donne l'avis d'opposition.
Merci.
De motion, excusez-moi.
40-11. Notice of motion, the council will include for adoption at any subsequent sitting the draft bylaw CA 290120 authorizing a borrowing of $1,500,000 for the financing of streets, repair, and related works in the borough of Pierrefonds-Roxboro, which is filed with the decision-making summary.
I'm giving the notice of motion.
Merci. 51.01, que le Conseil nomme Mme Catherine Clément-Talbot, conseillère de ville du district du Cap-Saint-Jacques, maire suppléant de l'arrondissement de Pierrefonds-Roxboro pour la période du 3 décembre 2019 au 9 mars 2020 inclusivement.
Je propose.
J'appuie.
Merci. 51.02, que le Conseil nomme M. Yves Gignac, conseiller d'arrondissement du district du Cap-Saint-Jacques, président du comité de signalisation et de sécurité routière de l'arrondissement de Pierrefonds-Roxboro du 1er janvier 2020 au 6 novembre 2021.
Je propose.
J'appuie.
Merci. 51.03, Mme Talbot.
Merci, Monsieur le maire. Que le Conseil approuve la nomination au comité consultatif d'urbanisme du 1er janvier 2020 au 31 décembre 2021 les personnes suivantes. M. Tony Lucadamo, membre et vice-président. M. Alain Marcoux et M. Paul-Édouard Robert, membres. Mme Christiane Dabé, membre suppléant. Je propose.
J'appuie.
Merci, Mme Talbot. Pardon,
Corbeil.
Mme Corbeil.
Alors, nous revenons à la période de questions. Mme Martha Bande.
Second red button. Good evening.
Good evening.
I did have a question about the two items, and then I came in to hear, and then I didn't hear the one decision somehow. Items 40.06, and I did hear the decision on 40.09. So,
you heard, okay.
and there was a woman who asked about it, the owner.
Yeah.
And then you were going to wait. And so what happened there?
Were you not here?
Yeah, I was here.
Oh. Well, we authorized the issuance of the construction permit on that lot.
Both
Yes,
of these
yes,
items.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, that was interesting. I'll have to review it, but somehow it was muffled or something.
I think I speak pretty clearly.
No. I thought it was withdrawn, actually, the way it was said.
No.
So that was a typo in the agenda that says does not authorize. Is that right? It was a typo here? It says does not authorize.
We're saying that in spite of the recommendation, we're saying that the council authorized the issuance of the construction permit and that be denounced the flood risk on the land concerning by the present permit application.
Okay.
So
well, the one says does not and the other says authorize.
No, that was an error, and that's what Madame Corbeil at the beginning of the council meeting. This was an adjustment that was made on that file tonight.
Can you explain in lay terms the denouncing virtue of this and what the flood risk is
Well,
for
we know
both of those properties?
Sure. The second property that was read on Saragay was never flooded in 2017 or 2019. So it made no sense to hold back the issuance of a permit for that home. That one is relatively straightforward. The one that sits on Rive-Boisé, part of the land was flooded. The new home that was designed for that property, not on the same footprint as the old house, but a bit further up, is a home that is designed not to have a foundation or a basement.
Basement, right.
And so this is why that met the requirements as stipulated by the regulations, and so we decided that it sits on the 20 to 100-year floodplain, and this house has been in limbo since 2017, and so we looked at it with the added benefit of having it further out, allowed us to make that decision, I think, today with a clear sort of perspective. However, knowing that that property was flooded, at least part of it was flooded in 2017 and 2019. And so we need to make it known that that property was flooded. We need to advise the person that that property was flooded, and that she knows that the homeowner knows that we are accepting her to build that home under the specifications that she's given us, which meet the requirements in the 20 to 100-year floodplain. And this is what was done tonight.
And so that'll be in the deed, basically, that acknowledgement.
In the permit. In the permit.
Actually,
yes.
in the permit.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And then my second question was, I'm not going to do the one I signed up for, but very briefly. So 4010 and 4011.
Yep.
Borrowing 1.5 million to finance street repair.
Yep.
Why is the council borrowing money for street repair and the parks instead of paying out of the operating budget?
Well, you remember that every council meeting we pass these. It's sort of a security that we make sure that we have money available to us for any works that we have planned for the next year, which we present here at council individually, that you see individually. I mean, if there's a park that we're going to redo, it comes out of this budget, but it never goes through unless we pass it at council, making sure that we evaluate everything. And this is just, if you will, like a line of credit, if you will, that allows us to be able to have the money available to us should we do. It may be used, it may not be used, but this is an amount that we have that we've put in traditionally for works that are to be carried out in the next year. Again, it may not be used, but if it is, everything comes through council here and is presented to all of you on a monthly basis anyways.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Bond.
Madame Suzanne Fogel.
Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am.
Happy holidays.
All the best to you as well.
I have two questions.
Go ahead.
One, we had sewer and aqueduct work done on our neighborhood, and they moved our community mailboxes.
Yep.
They have not been moved back, and I was wondering, the city doesn't know, have any answer as to when they will be moved back. The work was finished, I think, the beginning of November. Streets were paved. Do you think that
So you're not receiving mail at all now?
We are, but they've been moved farther away.
Ah.
They're on King Street, but they were within a shorter walking distance. So I was just wondering if you knew when they will be moved back.
You know, the community boxes, you know that I was completely opposed to that when they came out.
No.
I was completely opposed to it. The famous jackhammer moment in the postal box history was in our borough. We were completely opposed to it for many reasons, primarily being that sometimes the postman is the only person a lot of folks see.
That's right.
Creates a sense of security. The elderly can't get out and about. The people that are physically challenged, moms
Mhm.
with their little kids, they can't always be going to the mailbox. And then the weather playing another
of course,
role in that.
of course.
And so even after the government had said that they would reinstill the door delivery, they never did. So those boxes stayed and no one said boo about it.
Mhm.
What we will do is we will make sure that we will reach out to Canada Post tomorrow to find out. We have your address. Where was it situated before, ma'am?
It was on Maurice, in between Pine and Roland.
Okay. On
Well,
which
mine.
side? On the
Well, there
Roland
were
side?
a lot of them were moved. That was my mailbox, was
Yeah.
on Maurice and between Pine and Royal. There were others that were on Maurice.
You know, the utility companies sometimes, whether it be, Hydro, whether it be Bell,
Mhm.
Post Canada, unfortunately, they don't always communicate
No,
the information with us.
That's right. That's
Their
right.
role is to remove the boxes when there's major work to take place. Excuse me. And we don't know if it's going to come back or not. So we'll make sure we follow up with Canada Post, and
Okay.
someone will reach out to you to let you know.
Okay.
It's possible that if the boxes further down are serving the need right now, I don't know for sure, but they may just leave it at that and then have people walk that extra distance. But
Yeah.
we'll make sure we'll check for you, okay?
Yes,
You can
perfect.
always do the same by calling Canada Post yourself.
I wasn't sure who to call, so I called
Well,
311.
we'll follow, because it's Canada Post issue. But
Okay.
we'll follow up on your behalf, but I urge you to do the same and call Canada Post as
I
well,
will.
and maybe they can help you with that.
Perfect.
Okay?
My second question was further to your discussion of the sewers. We had sewer and aqueduct work done in the area, and of course, we were all surprised about the profile of our ditches, and we were told that that was a decision of the environment minister. I had no issue with that. I have to live with it, whatever. My issue is there are two properties on Maurice, 14870 and 14874 Maurice, that had ditches. They do not now. The city had filled them in. It wasn't the contractor, because Beauval had nothing to do with it. Not only were their ditches filled in, but the whole profile of the front of their property was changed so that the steepness has gone and it's a nice little slope. So that was a considerable expense to do that work. So the whole neighborhood is wondering why the majority of us have had to follow the environment minister's guideline and why those two properties did not.
Excellent question, ma'am, and I don't have the answer for you. I know Maurice well. My aunt lives on Maurice, so I know that area very well. I mean, I grew up in that area, and I know I've been following the work there as it's been going forward. And I know the discontent of some of the folks that live there,
Yeah.
particularly with the profiling of some
Yes.
of these ditches.
Yes.
I know that Madame Castonguay has been all over this with her teams as well. This is news to me about these two properties. I know that in some cases on some other streets, for example, on James, for example, there were some properties that were covered, but that was small sections between
Yes.
driveways where there was a hydro pole, for example.
Yes.
And people see it, or trees.
Yes.
And so there are exceptions made to that effect.
Right.
Your
Not these
particular
two
issue, I'm
properties,
not
yeah.
sure at all, and Madame
Yeah.
Castonguay will verify this,
Okay.
but I'd like to think there's a reason for it, and somebody just didn't do it for nothing or because someone asked for it, because that wouldn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
So we're going to make sure we follow up with that. Like I
Okay.
said, I'm going to drive by actually in the morning and check myself, but I know
Okay.
Madame Castonguay is going to send her team.
Because I had made over the summer, when we saw this work happening, we did call the city about it, and I did speak with a few people, and I was still waiting. No one would give me a response. So
Do you remember who you spoke to?
I spoke with Sophie Mosin.
Okay.
And I spoke with Madame Talbot. She
Okay.
had come to see me, and
Okay.
I had mentioned, because few of my neighbors were complaining that we have to respect the guidelines, why do these people not?
Well, that's an excellent question, ma'am, and we'll make
Thank
sure we
you.
find the answer for you, okay?
And I hope you have a great holiday.
All the best to you as
Thank
well.
you.
Madame Marina Angelodi.
Bonsoir tout le monde.
Bonsoir, madame.
Mr. Mayor.
Good evening.
I'm here today regarding the use of the parks for recreation. In particular, there's a bunch of gentlemen for the last 32 years. My husband at the moment is one of them. He's been with these gentlemen playing baseball, softball actually, for 16 years.
Are they good?
Some of them are. He's good. He's good. They vary in ages from mid-20s to...
Because I know when I played, I was amazing, even though no one else thought.
There have been some pretty cool plays, but they just do it to have fun. They age and range from 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and even as my husband in the early 60s. He joined about 16 years ago, and they've been playing at different parks, mostly Brook Park. They have a liaison, Madame Geneviève Bienvenue,
Yeah.
who tells them about whether or not there's some other activities happening in the park, and then they might change to Oakwood, they may
Right.
change to other parks.
Right.
Out of the blue, they received a letter from Jason Richard, chef de division de
Yeah.
sport and leisure
Yeah.
installations, asking them that they needed to follow a policy and name themselves as a nonprofit organization, file income tax, pay $169 a year, look up the registration of the name, fill in all the petitioners, a big form. It makes no sense to them. And they've missed the deadline, and I took the opportunity to come here on their behalf and wonder why, as citizens, we can't use our parks without disturbing anyone else who's using them for other purposes, without having to do all this paperwork and file income tax. There's no money that changes hands.
Just a bunch of guys getting together to play.
Just a bunch of guys, yeah, yeah.
Okay. There are rules in terms of how our facilities are used by nonprofit organizations. I don't know if my services are going to like to hear this, but my philosophy, even though I've been in sports all my life, has always been when you create a sporting field, it should be accessible to all. I mean, by no means do we want to fence properties and have them inaccessible except for organized sport, because that bunch of guys that wants to get together, gals that wants to get together, father wants to kick the ball around with their kids, has a neighborhood soccer game every week, let's say, with the people on their street, shouldn't be bound by some of the rules that govern, you know, how we operate through the nonprofit world.
Okay.
That being said, I don't know the history of their organization, if it is just a bunch of guys, or it's an organized group that requires lines and bases and all this kind of stuff. Because when we offer services like that, it's not like a soccer field where you can go kick the ball. I mean, a baseball diamond, you have to grade the field, you have to put the lines, you have to put the bases, and that is done for nonprofit organizations. Otherwise, we wouldn't leave the stuff there because it's removable. It can be taken, it disappears, right? By all means, if people want to use our facilities, they can go and use it if it's not being used for organized sport. Now, I'm not sure, and I know I'm looking at Madame Gervais, who manages that department, and the service does an excellent job coordinating all our use of our sports fields. I don't know this particular case why it is that way, but we'll make sure we get to the bottom of it and find out. But to be honest with you, if they just want to get together and play ball, and if we can put them in contact, for example, with the baseball organization, and have them tell them when they're using fields or not. So, for example, if the field isn't being used on a given day, I mean, certainly a bunch of people can get together and you know, bat the ball around. That, to me, at a glance, I'm saying, right? It doesn't sound like a problem to me. But there might be something more involved here, and so that's why we're going to check with Jason as well tomorrow. I mean, he's our sports guy, and he's, you know, a really competent sports guy.
Perfect.
But again, there may be more to this than I'm hearing now, and so this is what we're going to identify, and I will get back to you, or Madame Gervais or Jason will get back to you, okay?
They do put bases down for them, but the guys have their own bases, so they wouldn't need the bases. And the only thing that is, we tried to figure out why all of a sudden after 32 years,
Yeah, makes no sense. Makes no sense.
Well, there was apparently last summer a light that was broken, and they told the groundskeeper. So they think maybe they got on the radar.
No.
But they would be more than happy to pay for the light.
No, I would be.
But
I
all
would
the
be extremely-
paperwork.
No, I would be.
Baseball, they're into paperwork.
I would be completely surprised. But just for your information, to register as a nonprofit group doesn't mean you make money. Doesn't mean you collect money. It just means that you register as a nonprofit group where you have your letters patented. And the process, honestly, on the internet takes 10 minutes.
It's $36.
And it's $36.
It's $36. It's $169 to register with the Quebec Registry of.
We'll get to the bottom of this situation. I mean, I don't want you to register if you don't have to register. It would be ridiculous. But again, we're going to follow up and make sure why it is that case. Give you an example. Our synthetic fields that we have. I mean, once upon a time there was discussion on putting, like some other communities, you know, 6 feet, 8 feet fences that were locked. And we were, as an administration, totally against that. I mean, we're investing millions of dollars in our parks. Sure, they're going to be used by our nonprofit groups, but they also can be available to somebody that wants to kick the ball around with their kids. Why wouldn't that be a possibility, right, if it's in your neighborhood?
That's right.
So in that vein, let's look at what this situation is and try to get to the bottom of it, okay?
And actually, just to address what you just said, actually, Oakwood, since they put up the fences, is locked.
Yeah.
You can only get in by trying to scale the fence, and it's fairly high. And actually, one of the brook parks is, as far as I know.
Yeah, there are some facilities that don't have access simply because, you know, the wear and tear of them costs a lot of resources and money to make sure that we keep them to par. But there are fields. I mean, our tennis courts, I mean, the soccer fields, the baseball fields, a lot of them are available to the public. There's no question about it. Some of the more pristine fields we try to keep at a level to keep them safe, if anything else, for the organized groups.
Right.
But in general, all of that, or most of it, should be available to the public. No question about that.
Okay. Well, if
Okay.
you could look into it and find
I
out why,
will.
that would
We
be great.
will do that. Thank you,
Thank you
ma'am.
very
Thank
much.
you for waiting all this time.
And your mother lives on Maurice? Because I live on Maurice,
no, my
too.
aunt.
Your aunt.
My aunt lives on Maurice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the last house on the right, towards Cedar. If you want to knock on their door and say hi
I'll
on my
say hi
behalf.
for you.
I haven't seen them in a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Council.
Monsieur Daniel Latour.
So now you have a family connection for me. It's lamb. Lamb. We roast pig too, but it's lamb at Easter. Maybe he did, yeah. Okay. Wow, small world. Mr. Latour, how are you, sir?
Doing good.
Good.
Doing good. Doing good. Thank
Nice
you.
to see you.
Yeah, good to be here. Daniel Latour, I'm a resident of 1305.
Oh, no, Duff.
Duff.
Yes.
Duff and Fredmere, great neighborhood, getting to know the neighbors.
Yes.
I have questions. Don't want to take too much time. So to be short, I sent the questions over to the attention of our councillor and mayor tonight. I know it takes time.
You sent them tonight, sir? Yes. Okay. It's possible that I haven't looked at them, but okay. Okay, it's a pretty extensive list here. Okay, go ahead. You have two questions out of those.
Well, pick and choose. So there's an update requested on the petition for a public consultation on lighting the neighborhood of Duff and Fredmere.
No update for you, Mr. Latour, yet, to be honest with you. I know that you gave me that a little while ago, quite a while ago, and it's something that I've purposely put off at the moment, simply because we've been dealing with many other sort of emergencies, with the snow and the branches and all that kind of stuff. It is something that I still have front and center on my desk, and we will be passing that on to our services to evaluate, for example, what a cost could be. First of all, if it's doable, and what the cost would be associated to something like that. So, to be honest with you, that's where I am with that file, okay?
Okay. It's just a comment on that to help move it forward faster. In our neighborhood, it's pitch black. You put your hand out there, you won't see it. It's that dark, and it's not safe to be out there. So there's a big building in front of our window. It's the former IGA. I could see flood lamps, 1, 2, 3 LED lights up the neighborhood. It could be colorful lights on municipal trees that are on the boulevard of the municipality for the holiday season next year. Just saying. Okay.
All well noted, Mr. Latour, and I share that opinion because a lot of the older residential areas, particularly in the center core, aren't lit. You can drive all the way down to down Perron, Versailles, all the way down in those streets, and you'll see there are excuse me, that are as dark, if not darker. So we know that this is a reality of a lot of the older areas of our community, and your particular situation we will address. And again, my apologies for not doing this sooner, but it's something that I haven't forgotten. It's just that I've prioritized, to be honest.
Well, that's good to hear that it's on the public agenda. Other question, thousands of dollars awarded to a consulting firm of about $50,000 in 2015 to prepare the feasibility study on building an indoor swimming pool in Pierrefonds-Roxboro. What is the latest?
Oh my gosh, you have no idea how happy I am to hear that question.
I'm a swimmer.
You have no idea. You have no idea. This is something that our community has talked about for decades. Our administration was able to, our past administration, I don't want to take full credit of it because there were other people that were involved in it. But our role on the Executive Committee of Montreal last mandate secured the money that we needed for this facility in our community in the coming years. On December 11th, I believe, it is on the agenda at the Executive Committee in Montreal to authorize the first step, which is the architectural design and planning. And this follows extensive community meetings that we had with associations, with our services, doing a study of what exists on the West Island as to not repeat itself and not compete necessarily with our neighboring communities. And so all that is slated to pass at the executive level on the 11th, and I believe the next council meeting on Montreal is the 16th when we're there, and it passes there because the idea is we want to make sure that it gets passed by the end of the year so that it doesn't stop us from starting like we had planned in 2021. So the forecast is great, and you cannot believe how excited we are for our community. It's something we've been waiting for a long time, and we deserve it in our community just like we deserve the new library, just like we deserve the synthetic fields, just like we deserved everything that we're getting. And the pool is just the outcome of a lot of hard work. Mm-hmm. So that's a good development. Very good development.
Kudos.
Thank you.
If I may have permission, 2
Yes,
minutes?
yes.
Okay. Having collectively agreed to urgently improve public transit,
yeah,
to act now to respond to the challenges of climate change, how much money will my elected municipal representatives for the neighborhood of Duff and Fredmere and Gulf and Gwain Boulevard propose as a motion tonight to debate and approve seed money funding during budget deliberations this year to approve a proposed budget of $100,000 this year to appropriate funding by the City of Montreal, Pierrefonds-Roxboro agglomeration budget, to study and make recommendations to the City of Montreal on a community-sponsored pilot project to offer ride shares as proposed by kangaride.com and Cause2 Covoiturage Rideshare to all registered public transit users to and from the Pierrefonds-Roxboro City Hall parking lot, down St. John Boulevard, to Highway 40 and Holiday Inn to Metro Namur, and Highway 20 to Metro Vendôme for medical appointments, school, work, leisure activities, such as major events at the Bell Center and Olympic Stadium, after consulting with all municipalities of the West Island and the City of Montreal to propose bylaws starting this winter that will help to improve traffic circulation and signage to promote ride shares, park and ride campaigns this Nez Rouge holiday season with municipal benefits for registered drivers and public transit users of solar electric minivans related to accessing the St. John Boulevard reserve lanes during rush hours of 5:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m., 3:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m., Monday to Friday. It's long-winded, but you have the good thoughts to share with your administration.
In a perfect world, I would tell you that your recommendations aren't as long-winded as it was, which it wasn't, but if it was, it's not far-fetched at all. We know that that's where we're heading one day. We know, if you heard me earlier on when I spoke about some of the challenges we have regarding public transit and the collaboration between cities and neighborhoods and communities to make it work, and the will to make it work collectively sometimes isn't there. On the 16th of December, I'm proposing a motion in Montreal to talk about public transit.
Yeah.
Challenge the administration. I'm going to give you an in. And one of them is, for example, that they respect the equity, the territorial equity in Montreal. You know, we talk about the 300 buses in Montreal. Yeah. We have absolutely no clue when they're coming in. I have no clue if those buses are even designed to come here.
We'll find out.
To respect the punctuality, the environment, which is, you talk about electric and you talk about solar, the infrastructure that will be able to accommodate any type of public transit option, to make sure that it's safe and secure. So that's amongst some other issues that we're bringing up in Montreal to make sure they understand that it's not one size fits all when it comes to public transit, and we have particular issues on the West Island. I think that and I may have mentioned this to you a while back when we met, certainly I can try to put you in contact with some of the stakeholders that talk about public transit, and you can bring this up to their attention. Did you already meet with them?
I did meet with Marina Freecourt at the Montreal City office on Friday.
Ah, okay. And how did that
We
go?
are talking.
Okay, good. That's a good
It's
step.
all good.
That's
It's
a
all
good
good.
step. That's a very good step. And you
We
know
opened
what?
the door.
At agglomeration, I sit next
Yeah.
to Mr. Caldwell. And next agglomeration meeting that we have on the 17th, 18th, 19th, December 19th, I believe it is, I'll talk to him about what you proposed to him and see where they are with the analysis and study for it, okay?
That's good.
So
Thank you.
let's take it one step at a time.
Yeah.
What I would recommend you do, and I'm not sure in the note that you sent us today, what you just said, is it in the email you sent me?
Yes.
Okay.
All there.
That's all I need for now then.
Verbatim.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Alors, ça met fin à la période de questions pour ce soir.
Ça nous amène à la fin, Monsieur Gignac. Je propose. Sur ça, je vous souhaite un joyeux Noël, bonne année, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all of you, and the ones that are celebrating Hanukkah, Happy Hanukkah to you all as well. Thank you, and we'll see you next year.